And it's the same thing with the Liver King. So part of the stigma is like a lot of people, especially those people who don't take it, they'll say, oh, that guy's just on steroids and that's it. Like that's the answer, right? But to look like the Liver King did, it takes a ton of work. If your vision is poor, then we give you glasses or we give you contacts or people get LASIKs, right? To fix their genetics so that they have the quote unquote perfect vision, which is 20/20. It's been established, right? And that's what they should do with testosterone, right? They should come up and say, here's an optimal level where everybody's optimal at. Let's try to get everybody there because that's where everybody feels the best. They act their best. They're the most healthy, right?
Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm here with Ryan Root. Ryan owns a company called Hormones for Me. We're going to put the link in the description. We're going to be talking about the Liver King and basically just kind of the whole saga. And Ryan is a biochemist. Biochemist? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Biochemist. And so, yeah, check it out. So I contacted you about the Liver King and the whole, his scheme, I guess, and then him coming out and owning up to lying about taking steroids and the whole ancestral thing. And I did a video with Dan Wise about it. Yeah. We talked about it, and then but the more I thought about it, the more I thought you were probably the better person to do that video with because. Although like Dan understands, somewhat about, hormone replacement and, we had a different take on it. And I thought you would have an interesting take because I think when Dan and I talked about it, like one of my things was he could have, first of all, he says, the Liver King says, I don't even know the guy's real name, but he says that he, owns a supplement, has owned a supplement line, and it was doing super well regardless. And he then, this was in his apology. He said he did not realize that when he started doing, videos that he was going to blow up on social media like he did, and that he made a mistake and he was embarrassed and didn't want to say that he was also taking, anabolic steroids. So, but even though later when he's kind of outed, in the steroids, he very clearly talks about how he's hiring an entire team. He expects to have 100,000 followers or 1 million followers or whatever it is, on multiple social media platforms. And he's got it's a whole scheme that he's put together to really blow up, and he's got the money to do it. Then, of course, over the last year, he says he made like over $100 million in the last year by pushing his ancestral, way of life, or what's it called again? That he calls it the
9 ancestral tenets.
9 ancestral tenets. And then I was talking to Dan, and what bothered me about it is, okay, like he could have simply expanded on that and said, look, I've got my supplement line, I'm doing all these things, but I'm also taking, anabolic steroids because the truth is that at my age, or, at whatever age he is, men certainly at a certain age, some men, I guess most men, their testosterone and different steroids or different hormones, they start to decrease dramatically. And you can either deal with it and say, hey, my libido is going to drop. I'm going to not heal as quickly. I'm going to feel tired all the time. I'm going to get poor sleep, like all the things that go along with it. My body's going to start, I don't want to say decaying, but, basically breaking down and not be as strong and not have the physique I want. And I'm just going to have to, I'll just deal with it. Or you're going to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to put up with this, and I'm going to fight back. And that, to me, that could have been a part of his program. Even if you say, hey, well, he wouldn't have been as huge. Okay, so what? So what if he was 30%? Or maybe he only got 30% of those people dropped off. Like, so what?
Yeah.
Who cares? He may have picked up just as many people by admitting that.
Yeah.
And he could have worked with someone like you or a company like yours
mm-hmm.
to help those people, and he certainly would have made up for that income. If he was concerned about maximizing his income, okay, great. Then be honest and help, help kind of funnel those people into another company that just helps you along the way.
Yes. Yeah. So I think yeah, what you're talking about is a little bit of a unique take, right? And I totally agree with you, and that's the direction I want to go. When we discuss this, because everybody else has already covered all the, he shouldn't have lied.
Everyone's already bashed him to death.
Like 75, probably more, 80% of the people out there already knew he was taking something. It was pretty obvious. In fact, what's funny is on the Concrete podcast, Daniel asked me about the Liver King, and I specifically, and I actually went over it back then, and I was like, could have that type of physique and look like that without taking something. And but everybody called that, so that wasn't unique, right?
Joe Rogan mentioned it on his podcast,
right.
And he's on it, he's on stuff. So he knows. I mean, you can't be that age. But what I thought was interesting when we were talking was you had a whole group of things that you were like, yeah, but wait a second. When your eyes go bad, you do this. When this goes, like, you had a whole series of things that were like rebuttals to things that people do and don't think anything about it. So why should this be any different?
That's exactly right. Like, and we'll get into that. Like he just took the wrong tact. Like a better tact would have been to get out ahead of this whole thing and do exactly what you said. I think you articulated it well. So there's a little bit to unpack with what you opened up with there, which is always very good. But let me unpack a little bit of it. First, let's start with people's testosterone levels, right? And the common almost misconception. I don't want to say it's a misconception, but lack of understanding of the full truth is that as you age, your testosterone gets lower, right? And this is true. It's all true.
What age typically?
Well, yeah, and so that's where it starts to get foggy and cloudy, because so we're seeing now that there's people of all ages that have low testosterone, and I know, like, especially, so we have a clinic now, and we're starting to see these chronic issues with low hormones at younger ages with people in their 20s, and it's becoming evident now, and it's so is this. So now so originally back a decade or 2 decades ago, it was only considered if once you reach 40, 45, that's when your hormones start lowering. And that's when the only time anybody should be considered for testosterone replacement therapy. In fact, it was so bad at back again, 10, 20 years ago that they wouldn't even test you they wouldn't test your hormones unless you were over 40, over 45 in some cases. So, when 20 years ago, when I was like concerned about my hormones, nobody would test me. They wouldn't even give the test. No way. There's no way your hormones could be low if you're under 45. There's no way. We're not even going to test you for it. So, therefore, there's an element of this. It looks like this has been a problem for a long time, but the medical community refused to address it. Right. But they wouldn't take the data. They wouldn't take the empirical data to say, okay, there is a trend of people who are younger that do have hormone issues, just like people can have all kinds of issues, like, issues with their insulin, issues with vision, insulin within, you can have issues with your hormones at any age. Right. So we're seeing now that there's young people, and I am included in one of this. The reason I became so passionate about this industry is because, when I was younger, I now know that I was low on hormones, even though nobody would test me. But now, knowing what I do, I was, I know that the way I was feeling, the symptoms I was having was low testosterone. And when I took testosterone, it so dramatically improved my quality of life. Like, I mean, I lived 2 different worlds, like completely 2 different lives. And the one after taking testosterone was incredibly better than the life before. So, And that's why I became passionate about it. That's what drove this, me to make my entire life about testosterone, its derivatives, and some of the other hormones.
Law enforcement often questions him, not because he's suspected of a crime, but because they find him fascinating. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crime, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
So the idea, so now a lot of people are trying to explain, okay, so what's going on now? We're noticing that this is actually a more pervasive issue than we have recognized it as in the past. And some of it, so a lot of people are saying, well, okay, there's new environmental toxins, right? All these plastics and everything are getting into our food or water, preservatives, all kinds of things are causing this. And that's possible. It sounds like it sounds scientifically valid, right? But usually when you have something that's this pervasive, right, it's not because of one thing. It's not when you have like almost like an epidemic like this, right? Because this is worldwide. If you go around the world, everybody's suffering from these issues.
Well, I had heard, and I don't know about the statistic, but I had heard that like in the last 50 or 100 years that the average male's testosterone has dropped something like 30% or something. It was, I don't know the exact with the percentage, but it was any marked drop is odd, but the figure that was given was so like, it was like, that's a substantial drop. Like it wasn't like, oh, by 6%. No, it was massive. And it was like, and the person that said it started giving different reasons. Like, could be this, it could be because of what's in we're pumping, different stuff into food. We're giving different, different fertilizers, different, hormones into cows. And they had all these different things that, but they could, like you said, they couldn't say what exactly it was.
Right.
But I just remember thinking like, fuck, you can, that there, there's actually a measured, drop.
Right.
Is like
for all ages. Yeah, for all ages too, not just people as you get old. So like 20 years ago, it was only if you're old, that's the only way your testosterone drops, right? And nobody else needs it. And now you're saying, so people are trying to explain, well, why is everybody, there's a not everybody, but there's a substantial amount of people who have these lower testosterone, who are suffering symptoms of hypogonadism, which is low testosterone, right? So in an effort to explain that, you're right. So the environmental toxins is scientifically valid, but it's like I said, usually when something is this pervasive, when this when this almost like an epidemic, right? It's a coalescing of multiple factors, right? And it seems to me that it also has been, just like you said, right, in the last 50 years, there's been evidence of testosterone levels dropping. So this is, but so it's becoming evident that this actually has been an issue for decades now. But like I said, the medical community just didn't focus on this. They didn't take the empirical data to see that okay, there are people in their 20s, because 20 years ago, 15 years ago, they wouldn't even, like I said, they wouldn't even test anybody under 40 their testosterone, because it was impossible that you had low testosterone, right? And now we're saying, well, that's not true. So it's also a function of this problem has existed for a while. It's just now starting to kind of come out, right? It's starting to be aware of. And back 20 years ago, they weren't taking the data to prove that, okay, these testosterone levels have been dropping for a while. So it's like a function of a few different things. Like I said, a coalescing of these factors. But yeah, so I guess, the next logical part to go down is to identify where testosterone and its derivatives started on this path of demonization, right? So this is a big part of the problem. And in my mind, well, I'll get to that later. So it's a big part of the problem that back in the 80s, when bodybuilders started getting a hold of these, of steroids, and it started to just get a bad name. It started to get a bad name. The Olympic Committee banned them. Then slowly every professional sport started banning them. Major League Baseball, basketball, the NFL. And then in the 1990, right, it got lumped in with all the other drugs during the war on drugs. It was just thrown in there. But at the time, there was just such a massive push to illegalize drugs and eradicate drugs, and anything that seemed like a drug was just lumped into this category, right? So steroids got put into that, and then in 1990, the Steroid Control Act was passed, making testosterone and its derivatives a Schedule 3 narcotic, or Schedule 3 drug, not a narcotic, a drug. And so this further clouded testosterone and its derivatives into the shroud of odium that that has been just building and building.
Sorry, let me interrupt you. When you say a class 3 level drug, what does that mean?
Schedule 3. So yeah, that's a federal scheduling.
Right. Does that mean like is that like comparable to, cocaine and methamphetamine, or is it comparable to something?
It's comparable to like at the time when it was illegal, it was comparable to things like morphine and opiates and ketamine. Benzodiazepines are also in that schedule. Cocaine was
a dangerous drug.
I believe. Heroin was Schedule 1, right? So Schedule 1 means there's no medical value; it's purely recreational. And then for Schedule 3 means that there is some medical value to it, so it can be prescribed. But Schedule 1s can't be prescribed.
Right.
So
yeah.
That's kind of how they differentiate them. And then obviously the criminal penalties go up as the schedule goes up.
Okay. So sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
No, yeah.
I didn't know.
So this further clouded steroids and its derivatives into the shroud of odium that that has persisted. So now it became, because of all this, it also started to become, well, you're cheating if you take these, and it started to become this just stigmatized, right? Stigmatized into all the studies out at the time were only done at people doing abusive levels. So there was just this wide thought that these were very bad for you, and that they would cause all these health problems and issues. And as time goes on, we start to realize that these are very beneficial. In therapeutic doses, they're very beneficial to millions of people, and they dramatically improve quality of lives. And they actually take people off of other medications. I have people who go off of opiates for pain, right? Because the testosterone and especially nandrolone are anti-inflammatories, and they reduce pain. They go off of pain medications. They go off of depression medications. Testosterone is dopaminergic, so it acts on our dopamine receptors, makes us feel good, right? They go off of, it reduces cholesterol, despite what you may read that it increases cholesterol. The new contemporary evidence shows and proves, and I've seen it thousands of times, where it reduces cholesterol. So people go off cholesterol medications. It lowers blood pressure if you take it in therapeutic amounts. It lowers blood pressure. People go off blood pressure meds, and like I said, depression medications too. So it's making people healthier. Their blood work looks better. I've seen this thousands upon thousands of times, and but this, like I said, the stigma had just seeped from about the 1980s, maybe even a little before. And it took a similar path to marijuana, right? So back in the 50s during reefer madness, right, marijuana was demonized, and it was actually educated that if you smoked marijuana, you could die, or you would go insane. You would be in an insane asylum, right? That was the education on marijuana. And part of what happened from that is that's why it became a controlled substance. Marijuana was made a Schedule 1 controlled substance. Just because it was demonized. And then what did it take? It took 6 decades for everybody to kind of go, all right, you know what? Marijuana isn't that dangerous. In fact, it can help a lot of people. So it's like, it's been destigmatizing, right? And now pretty soon it's going to be legal in every state, right? So testosterone took a similar path to that, right? And it is slowly destigmatizing. Like it's just starting right now, when we're starting to realize, like, a lot of people are really dramatically improving their quality of life. And that's just fact. It's, I've seen it 20,000 times or more, and it's all over the place, right? So, and so I guess part of what I wanted to talk about with the Liver King is and part of what you were talking about is the better tact would have been to jump out in front of this, right? Is to come out and say, because a large part of it too is what he's saying isn't wrong. Like his 9 ancestral tenets there. I mean, a lot of the advice is pretty good, right? Eat healthy, exercise a lot, live better, do all these things. And a lot of it really makes sense. And it's true that it would help. And, and what would have made more sense is to throw in, and, some of your, for some
if
people,
necessary,
especially as you age, your hormones get off, and fix those, get those in order, get your hormones in order. And he could have led with that and gone on that platform. And just like you said, I don't think he would have lost, like if he would have lost anybody from that, he would have gained in other supporters. Right.
Yeah. I mean, honesty is definitely the way to go. I mean, for every person that I think I lose because I'm overtly honest about, like my case or just things in general that I believe, I definitely pick somebody up, and the people that are there are that much more inclined to stick around because they're like, look, even if I don't, a lot of them are like, look, you know what he said, I don't agree with that, but he's honest about it. Like he's not, and that's all I think he had to do.
I totally agree with that. Like, and it's because of this stigma that he felt that he had to lie about that, right? It's the stigma, but that's the point. So the point of this, what I want to get through is that these influencers, he's an influencer at this point because he grew a massive audience, right? So these influencers, they're the ones that can change this paradigm, right? They're the ones who can, I mean, instead of reinforcing the stigmas, it makes more sense to get ahead of it and try to change people's thought process, right? Try to change the paradigm into, okay, these aren't bad. If there's nothing wrong with wanting to look and feel your best, right?
Well, can I mention something?
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree with what you're saying. My only problem with that is, like, I absolutely agree because, obviously, you and I met and we talked, and and I told you like the issues that I was having. Like, I was working out all the time, but I mean, I was told you I was constantly sore, and not in a good, I had a good workout kind of sore. Sore like my joints hurt, like things were hurting, and I would bump into a wall and I would have a green and purple bruise that didn't go away for fucking 3 weeks. And it's like, what? That's not normal. But it is normal if you have if your testosterone's low and you're 53 years old. I'm 53 years old. I wasn't hungry ever. So it was easy for me to stay thin because if I didn't want to eat during the day, I didn't have to eat. Like now I have the opposite problem. But we talked about it. I got my blood work done. You looked at it. You arranged for me to talk to a doctor. I spoke with a doctor. You did a whole write-up. You said, this is what you need to be taking. You gave me what I needed to be taking. I started taking it, and, probably lifting 30% more across the board. And what's funny about that is that and that took place over the course of probably 2 months, where I just started getting stronger across the board. And the other thing is that not only am I stronger, but it's not as heavy. Like, does that make sense? Like, I'm
absolutely.
30-40% more, and it's not as heavy, and I'm recovering quicker, and I'm sleeping better. My skin looks better. Like, everything about me looks better. My only problem is, and I've already talked to you about this, is like I gained 20 pounds. I'm hungry all the time. And, and that bothers me because I felt good. Like, I want to lose some weight, but that's not the problem. That's not the testosterone's problem. The problem is I'm at home and I snack. So, everybody can tell that I look much better, or I guess bigger, thicker.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. You do. You look great.
Yeah, well,
You
I
do. You
appreciate
do
that.
look really good.
But you
You've
know,
done a
but
great job.
yeah,
And,
well,
and
I
as you know,
appreciate
so
you. I was gonna say, but my problem is with him, he was taking massive amounts. Like you prescribed like two medications for me.
yeah.
He was way overdoing it.
We'll go over it here in
Okay.
a little bit later, but we're actually going to see that he
Can
what
I
he
say
showed
something?
on what he showed on the email wasn't it actually wasn't a lot.
It
And,
wasn't.
and
You know
I'll
why
break
I
down
think it's a lot?
everything.
You know why I think it's a lot? Because I think because the dollar amount was so high. Like
Yeah,
everybody's big on he's taking over $10,000 a month,
yeah,
but the truth is
the,
what you prescribed to me, it's a few $100. Like it's
yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
It's super inexpensive.
yeah. What cost him a lot of money is the human growth hormone, and that's really
Oh,
expensive. That's
okay.
so I mean, he was taking most of that pay was, or most of that cost was human growth hormone, which is really expensive from a pharmacy.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, but we'll go over that. But at the same time, um, so for you, right? Like I said, you've done a great job, and you look good. But it's not like you can just take this and do nothing, right? Like you're working hard. You're probably working harder now because you have you don't have the pain. You have the and you have more. Like I said, it acts on dopamine receptors, so you have motivation and ambition. So,
Oh, I
my
feel better
guess
when
is
I'm
that you're
working
working
out.
out harder.
Yeah, I feel better when I'm working out. Like
Yeah,
when I'm
right,
working out and I can see gains, I can see a
right.
dramatic difference when I work out. I'm not as in as much pain as I am,
Yeah,
jumping on the dip bar, I'm knocking out 25, 30, doing like 4 sets of
yeah,
dips where before I would do them, my shoulders killing me,
yeah,
my back hurts. I'm getting off. I'm like, oh, I get off now and I'm like jacked. I feel
yeah,
great.
yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. And this is what's stigmatized. That's the crazy part about it, right? Look how much better you feel, look how much better you look, and that's stigmatized. And I guarantee your blood works better too. I've seen it thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of times. So so that's part of it. But my point is that you didn't just take these and just look like you do right now, right? And didn't get the gains. You worked for it. So, and it's the same thing with the Liver King. So part of the stigma is like a lot of people, especially those people who don't take it, they'll say, oh, that guy's just on steroids, and that's it. Like that's the answer, right?
Yeah.
But to look like the Liver King did, it takes a ton of work. I mean, his workouts were incredibly intense. And the rest of the things he was doing, the other 9 ancestral tenets, as weird as some of them were, but whatever, it's all, it all makes sense. The rest of that did help his physique. So it's not like he would have been able to take the steroid stack that he was taking and then sit on the couch and just look like that, right? It's still a ton of hard work. And it gives you the impetus to be able to do that hard work. Like you noticed, the dopaminergic effects from when you actually look better, when you're seeing results, that releases dopamine, which motivates you to go do it more, right? And it's just this positive reinforcing cycle, right? And
Yeah.
so, but as we were discussing, he should have led with that, right? Just come out and then try to change the paradigm so people don't think it's so bad by hiding it, by coming out later, by hiding it, by having it leaked out. Now he's just reinforcing these stigmas, right? Like he didn't help the cause. He didn't help the greater cause to normalize the use of testosterone or its derivatives. Right. I mean, and that's part of I think that's an important message. Reclaim your life, right? Like, male sovereignty, all these things. Like you can have what you want, the way that you envision in your head that you want. You can develop into the picture in your head that you envision to look like, to feel like, right? And nobody should be ashamed of that. So that's what I was saying before. I said, all right, so what I have here, when our vision is inherently poor, we fix our vision. When we feel terrible because our body isn't producing adequate insulin, we fix our insulin levels. When we are deficient in any mineral or vitamin, we fix this by supplementing with vitamins and minerals. If our testosterone levels are not adequate or optimal, why wouldn't we fix our testosterone? These hormones make us healthier. They make us look better. They make us feel better. Nobody should be ashamed of wanting that for themselves.
Right.
And that's the point. And him being an influencer he could spread that message. He would have gotten out ahead of it. It would have made actual business sense because now he's ahead of it. Now he can actually help to change the paradigm. And like you said, there's some business in that too. And changing paradigms into venturing into markets and places where other people haven't gone just because of the stigma. Right.
Right. I was going to say, also his diet, like, I mean, let's face it, his diet, it's not insane. I mean, granted, he, eat liver and eat this and eat the heart. And it's a high protein diet. Okay. Like, I don't have to fucking eat liver. Okay. But, like you can still, it's just an extremely high protein diet is going to be good to build muscle, as opposed to, the carbohydrates. It's your body's going to break down the carbohydrates, into sugars and use that as opposed to building muscle with the carbohydrates. So he's kind of eliminating that to help lower his fat level, or the amount of fat he has on his body. Like his diet is he's got a great diet. He's got a great diet plan. Right. He's got, the supplements are good. Like the only problem is, saying that your physique is 100% based on just my supplements and working out and eating raw this and raw that. But the truth is you don't necessarily have to, you have to do those things, but he's also using, steroids, to do that. I mean, I wonder what's so funny is had he not used the steroids, he'd probably still look amazing. He probably wouldn't look as amazing.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But he still looked fucking amazing just based on your diet alone.
Right.
Because I've always said that, like, look, like physically having a great body, like 80% of it is your diet. Like maybe 90%, like 10 or 20% is really working out. Like you could work out twice a day, but if you're eating fucking cake and pizza 3 times a day, you can't outwork out a bad diet.
Yeah.
So it's a combination, and it's almost more important to have a good diet. It's like 80% of it is you can have a good diet and just jog and have a great body. Like you don't work out at all. You're not going to be muscular, but you're going to have a lean body because you eat good and you jog.
So you're right. Like, I mean, what you're saying about it's all of these factors, right? But hormones and his message were not diametrically opposed, right? So what you're saying is correct. It is about all these other factors, that including diet, including the minerals, the vitamins and minerals that he wanted you to get through liver, right? And his supplements were, had to do with that, how to do it with getting proper supplementation, and all that is right. There's nothing wrong with that message. Like, the way he did it was a little weird, but that's what also got him a lot of views. So I mean, there's no problem with that. There's no problem with the rest of his message. Hormone levels, you're right. Diet is very, very important, but so are hormone levels. Like this is genetic factors, right? So essentially we're saying that, people who just have low testosterone, they just don't have the genetic propensity that they would like, right? The amount of testosterone in your blood, the amount of receptors, androgen receptors you have to have the cascading effects that do all the things, such as hypertrophy, muscle cells, increase metabolism, have the dopaminergic effects, like all those things are genetic factors, right? And so having the genetic, like I said, like having those hormones and receptors, they're all genetic factors. And if you don't have that, we can supplement with that and give you some of these factors that you may be lacking, right? Like sort of like vision. Like that's why I like to really, I love to use vision, because I think they've done vision properly, right? So the ophthalmologist decided, okay, here there's a wide range of vision, right? Some people have bad vision, some people have poor vision, genetic factors, just like testosterone. Some people have low testosterone or low receptors, and some people have high amount of testosterone. It's just genetic, right? So what do we do with vision? We came and said we established a level that we say everybody should be able to attain because we call it perfect vision, 20/20, right? So now we try to get everybody to 20/20 vision. So when you go, as you're young, you get your eyes tested. If your vision is poor, then we give you glasses or we give you contacts, or people get LASIKs, right? To fix their genetics so that they have the quote unquote perfect vision, which is 20/20. It's been established, right? We don't say like and that's what they should do with testosterone, right? They should come up and say, here's an optimal level where everybody's optimal at. Let's try to get everybody there, because that's where everybody feels the best. They act their best. They're the most healthy, right? And kind of the opposite has been done. Like they have this range, right? The testosterone range. I don't know if you know anything about the range, but the ranges on the medical tests go from 250 nanograms per deciliter to up to, I don't know, they're different. A lot of them are different, but we'll say up to 850 nanograms per deciliter. And that's the range, right? And this is rooted in nothing real and no real data. And it's completely arbitrary, because nobody under 700 feels optimal. And anybody under 500 they're living lives of despair. They're living, terrible, depressed, fatigue, lack of ambition, low libido, just like, again, lives of despair. And to say that level is normal, like on our blood test, the 250 is normal, that is absolutely ludicrous. Nobody feels normal at that level. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, because of this stigma, the medical community just hasn't focused on this. They don't learn about it in medical school. There's a general ignorance and lack of education about it, right? So we have this wide range. Imagine if we had that wide range for vision. Imagine if we said, well, you're normal if you're from 2800 to 20/20, right? That's all in the quote unquote normal range. So then they're sending people away with 2800 vision because they're normal. And these people are like bumping into walls and everything, and they can't, they can't live any kind of quality of life. So, that's why we don't consider it cheating when we give people glasses, right? We don't consider it. The same thing with the insulin levels. If you feel terrible, if your insulin is, if you're not producing the proper amount of insulin, right? So what do? We just give people the insulin, right? It's by the transitive property, we should just give people testosterone when they're low. It doesn't make sense. And again, it's all due to the stigma.
Back in the 50s and 60s, all throughout the 50s, all throughout the 60s, up into the mid 70s and late 70s, when you were 40 years old, most doctors recommended you get a hysterectomy. I mean, that was just it. Like my mother went in for a hysterectomy. She didn't have any problems. She just went in. Why? Because I'm 40.
Yeah. Right.
That's what you do.
It's ridiculous, right?
Like now, if you told a doctor that, they'd go, that's fucking insane. Like, why would you, why? What was wrong? Oh, nothing. I was 40. She went in for a hysterectomy to get a hysterectomy. Because they felt that it did something. It helped stabilize your hormones, and it was better for you. And you were 40, and after 40, it was dangerous to have a child.
Yeah.
So she went in for a hysterectomy at 40 years old, of course, and turns out she was pregnant with me.
Oh, well. Hey.
But that was a common thing to go in and have a hysterectomy. It's the same thing like when my dad was growing up. They had commercials where they were telling you that cigarettes were made your lungs stronger. It made you a stronger person if you smoked cigarettes. Like, there's tons of insane things that the medical community has allowed, or advertising, or just in general, just stupid things that they've gone with for 20 years. And then later they're like, just like you said with marijuana, then suddenly they're like, our bad.
Yeah. So Matt, you make an incredibly good point. And what you're saying is absolutely correct. The medical community's history is rife with blunders, right? Of these things that are wrong. Why would we think that that this isn't occurring right now? With this, I mean, you ask anybody who uses testosterone, I'm going to say, I don't know, 95% or more of the people who use testosterone, it's life-changing. It's amazing. They can't believe they didn't do this sooner. Right. the other 5% are just people who don't know how to, or aren't using it right, or aren't being guided right. And if I was their coach through these, they'd be feeling a lot better. But
well, there's lots of people that, you know, are just miserable. No matter what you do, they're going to be miserable. So,
yeah, but and sometimes it just has to do with, you know, everybody's different. Invariably, everybody's different, and everybody reacts differently to these compounds. And you have to. Sometimes it takes some time to dial people in. Most people are like you; they start taking testosterone, and they're off and running. You know, all their hormones resolve into their proper zones, and then they're off and running with dramatically improved quality of lives right away. And that's usually how it works, 95% of the time.
You know what it makes me think of? There's a story I heard one time, which makes me think of the medical community and just on a lot of topics. It's like you're taught something and you just believe that there's a reason for it, and that's the way it is. And it reminds me that there was a woman one time, she went over to her in-laws' house to cook a roast. And they asked her to prepare the roast, and she cut off both ends of the roast. And they said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, you cut the ends of the roast off." And they went, "Why?" She said, "That's how we do it, how you do it." And they went, "Really? What? Well, we don't do it like that." And she goes, "Yeah, that's how you do it." So she said, she called her sister. Her sister said, "Oh yeah, no, you got to cut off the ends of the roast." And so they went, "Why?" And she said, "You know, I don't know." So they called their mother and said, "Why do we cut off the ends of the roast?" She said, "Well, that's how I was taught. Let me call your grandmother." So they called the grandmother and they said, "Grandma, why are we cutting off the end of the roast? We're talking to this other family. They don't do it like that." And the grandmother said, "Well, because my oven only fits this much, so you have to cut off the end to fit it into the range."
Yeah.
And it's like, so 3 generations of people have been doing this and teaching their daughter. And but the truth is you know, a lot of times you're told something, you accept it as being the truth. You never look into it. You pass that knowledge along. And it was always circumstantial.
Yeah.
It was always wrong.
That's a great analogy. And you're absolutely right. It has, like, once a paradigm has been established, it's really hard to change it. It's really hard to change a belief system. And you're right. It doesn't have to be rooted in anything real. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that's exactly what these influencers can do. That's what they have the power to do. That's what they have the platform to do, right? Is to start to change these paradigms and change these belief structures. And that's where the Liver King would have, that's where he, you know, it would have been, you know, the best. It would have been best for his future. It would have been best for the entire industry. And for millions of other people who, you know, so you also have to think of this, right? Like, so because of the way the medical community is just behind on understanding the contemporary knowledge and empirical data regarding these hormones, how many millions of people currently are living lives of despair just because, you know, again, there's a lack of education in the medical community about it.
Right.
Like, and how many people would be so much better? There's millions. Worldwide, there's probably hundreds of millions, if not more. How many billions of people have lived and died lives of despair just because of this lack of education, right?
Well, and he had an opportunity that he squandered.
That's exactly correct. So he had an opportunity to get out ahead of this and start changing the paradigm for posterity, right? For future people to not stigmatize these hormones and for millions and millions of people in the future to feel better.
What do you think? So what do you think moving forward for him? What do you think he could do? Like, do you think, I had talked to Dan about this, like is he able to move past this in some way? Because I personally think that he's going to lose 30%, 40% of his followers, but the bulk of these people, kind of like you said, they assumed he was on something anyway, and in a way they're watching him because he's a character, and maybe they just like the message in general. Like they're getting results and they don't give a shit what this guy's doing to get his results. It's working for them. So are you thinking that this is something like he steps out of the limelight and tries to just kind of, you know, scurry away, or what would you do if you were him?
Yeah.
Because by the way, because you know, in a very real way, right? Like, you know, you have a past,
Mm-hmm.
and you said, it's just like me. Like I got out of prison and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go sell used cars and just kind of, you know, and just kind of hope nobody looks into me and just kind of keep my head down? Or am I going to lean into it and say, yeah, that's what happened. That's who I was then.
Yeah. Embrace
And
it.
this is who I am now.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and you can deal with it. You know, to me, it's like you can deal with it or you can fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
okay with either one.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay. And what I didn't understand was that there are tons of people that just said, I love that. I love
Mm-hmm.
that you're okay with that. And because you're okay with it and you've addressed it and you've hit it head on, just like you were saying, I'm good with it and I'm good with you. So that's what I think he does. And he leans into it
Yeah.
and doesn't try and downplay it, which he's already trying to do, by the way. If you
Yeah.
watched his apology video, he was
Yeah.
trying to downplay it.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to be huge.
Yeah.
To me, I just say, look, he started off good. I fucked up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, yep. So that's one thing you have to commend him on is like, how many people have we seen in the past double down on their lie, right?
Yeah.
It just come out and that would have been a mistake, right? So, I mean, if there's something to commend him on here, it's that he came right out and was like, yes, I did this. And, you know, you do have to commend him a little bit for that.
Yeah, no, I do.
That
I don't
was
think
the first step in a right move in going in the right direction, right?
Right. I think he did a half-assed job of it.
Yeah.
But but not addressing it was not an option. Like that's not the way to go.
Or the wrong thing would have been doubling down, which a lot of people have done in the past.
Yeah, there could have been. Yeah, there were two options. There were three options, and he took the better of the three options.
Yeah.
He just, to me, you just wasn't 100% when he started saying, I didn't realize that I was going to, you know, no, you did. You put a ton of money into this.
Yeah.
Like you did. Like, don't lean into it, be 100% honest, and don't worry about what anybody thinks, because it's your only path to redemption.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And I totally agree with you too. I don't see if he does this the right way, I don't see it affecting his followers or his audience, or even in the end, you know, it may take a hit for a little while, but I think he can regain everything in the end if he does it right.
Yeah, I think so. Because let's face it, the guy's a character.
Yeah, it's still amazing what he's doing. I mean, look at like, you don't look like that. No. You know, without a ton of work or without still really good genetics. I mean, it's not like, I mean, I could give 99.9% of the people the same thing he's taken, and they wouldn't look like that.
Yeah, I'm never going to look like that. Yeah, that's first of all,
it's still amazing.
First of all, I just don't have the energy this guy's got.
Yeah.
He has a tremendous amount of energy. His diet, but then again, you know, this is the other thing is like when your whole life is looking like that, because his whole life is just training and eating, and like then you can look like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm never gonna be that guy. It's kind of like, it's funny because it's like I talk about when I talk about like doing, you know, YouTube. I always think, listen, I'm not too far away from this thing paying my bills. So the moment it pays my bills, I can double down on it. Then I can, like, if I'm putting out 3 things a week now, like as soon as this pays all my bills, I get to drop some of the stuff I'm doing and double down on it. And then it becomes 4 or 5. And then it becomes me really being able to put time into people's stories and really putting out some amazing content.
Yeah.
But I'm not there. You know, so I think it's the same thing with him. Like if you got a regular job, like it's going to be almost impossible to look like him.
Yeah.
But if you could quit your job and do nothing but train and eat right, well, then it's probably possible that maybe you could, some people anyway.
It's still largely dependent on genetics, right? Because like I said, it's not only the amount of androgens that he has in his system or the amount of IGF or human growth hormone, which we'll look in a minute here. We'll look that actually wasn't that high, surprisingly. But there's still a lot of other genetic factors that go into this. So even though you're right, you are absolutely correct. Like if given that somebody had the time, the money, the wherewithal to do the exact same exercise regimen that he was doing, eat the same things. I mean, you could still give 99% of the people the same stack he was taking, have them do the same and everything, and they're still not going to look like that.
Yeah.
But you know, people would, you're right, giving people the time, giving people the correct diet and everything, they could get closer.
Yeah. Well, you could look amazing. Maybe you won't look like him, but you're going to look pretty
right.
good.
But you'll still look amazing, right? But he's still a genetic freak. Like,
yeah. And I love it too. He's like tiny. He's like 5'7".
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. I was around you know, due to my history, I was around a lot of bodybuilders, and one thing that you learn about these bodybuilders is that they are genetic freaks.
Yeah.
Like they take these things and their body responds to it like nobody else's. They hyper respond. And they're naturally they're just massive human beings. And then when they take these, you know, take some steroids, and the surprising thing is some of them don't have to take that much, and they just get huge. It's like,
I was gonna say, it's funny because you would see, you know, a lot of guys will work out. They obviously have workout partners.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known guys that have, you know, there's like 3 guys, they've been working out together for 2 years straight, all doing the same exercises, pretty much eating the same things. And of course, one guy looks like a goddamn, he looks like a bodybuilder. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And the other guys, like, it's like, so you guys, like, one guy has okay calves, one guy has amazing calves, the other guy has virtually no calves. Same, doing the same stuff. It's like, he just doesn't seem to be able to build his calf. Or the one guy has phenomenal shoulders. Mm-hmm. The other 2 guys just don't. They're all doing the same machines, you know, or they all look great. Yeah. But you're right, you know, genetically.
It's just genetics is a massive factor in how we, and the way we look, though, you know, every aspect of us is all genetics, right?
Yeah. Some people have tiny waists.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like they look like a fucking hourglass. It's insane. It's like, but you can't get a tiny waist by dieting. I mean, some people just have thicker waists. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess you could have surgery. You could cut some of those organs down, squeeze it, and get some of that mesh in there, and squeeze the mesh. Maybe cut the pelvic bone, remove a piece, and it's like, you know, there's some people that'll go to the extremes, but in general, no. Your basic accountant is not going to get to look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
what was he on? What was?
Okay. Yeah. Really quick, to go into your issue, I wanted to talk about this. We might as well talk about it in front of everybody. So you're talking about wanting to lose 20 pounds, you know, just because. So what I tell a lot of people is don't pay attention to that scale when you get on TRT. The scale is going to be misleading, right? And I know you're saying that you want to lose 20 pounds, just like, and it seems to me it's more about you want the scale to say a certain thing, right? But
and I want to be able to fit into my size 30 waist pants. I used to wear my size 30 waist pants, and there was still some room. I got like 2 size 31s. I got 2 pairs of jeans I can wear.
But it's quality weight, though. So like the reason you're eating more, it takes a lot of energy to hypertrophy muscle cells, to build muscle, and to maintain that muscle mass. So your metabolism increases significantly, right? So you're constantly burning more energy, which makes you more hungry. But now, so your body goes from being in a catabolic state. In a catabolic state, you'll burn muscle mass before your fat stores. It's an evolutionary mechanism to save your fat as your last source of energy, right? But when you go in an anabolic state, when your testosterone raises higher, then your body switches to using your fat stores as one of your primary sources of energy. So now your metabolism's increased, you're burning a lot more energy, you're working out harder, which is burning more energy. And, but your body is conserving muscle mass now, and you're using more fat stores for energy. So like all these factors go into it, and it's more about, so I tell people, I said, don't pay attention to the scale. Don't pay attention to your pant size. It's about the mirror test, right? We just want to look good. So do what you got to do to look good. And if I were you, I think you look great. I wouldn't lose anything. Don't lose anything.
I admittedly, and I mean, I do understand that I look good, but you know, it is also, Yeah, I gotta lose something. I gotta lose at least 10 pounds. Listen, and I got a girlfriend that is no help at all. Like she weighs 120 pounds no matter what she eats. She comes home, you know, and then the other thing too is like if I eat like high protein, right? So I eat like white chicken breasts during the day,
Mhm.
and I'm just drinking like water or, you know, unsweet or like, you know, whatever, cranberry juice or something, you know, like diet cranberry juice and all kinds of stuff. Like I mean, not all kinds of stuff, but I'm saying I'm very, you know, really high protein. And then, and Jess gets home and, you know, she's cooking pasta. And I'm like, no, and I'm like, no, I don't want any pasta. And she'll make me a plate and put it down in front of me. And it's like, what do you do? Like, and I'm starving.
Yeah.
I'm starving because if you eat 200 calories of if you eat 1,500 calories of protein
Mm-hmm.
and 1,500 calories of carbohydrates,
Mm-hmm.
if it's the 1,500 of calories of protein, you're starving. Like as soon as I'm done eating the protein, I'm still hungry. But if you eat some pasta, you're like, oh, I feel so full. I feel great. I feel, you know, yeah. Protein sucks.
Yeah.
It's just for me, it keeps me hungry.
Yeah.
And I got, you know, like I said, she's no help.
Congratulations about you two, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
not your girlfriend, right?
It sounds so stupid saying, you know, fiance. And
Come
like,
on, it's a social construct that we have to take on.
yeah, it's, you know, she got mad at me today
Mm-hmm.
at the gym because she was doing, was she doing like she does deadlifts, but like, you know, which is, you know, but you know, like low weight.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was doing, or was she doing bent over rows? I don't know. But anyway, I was playing on my phone, and when I was done, I could tell she was irritated. She's all right. Well, you know, let's go to the next machine. Or whatever. I was like, okay. And we go to the next machine, and she was irritated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, I just did 40 deadlifts. And I went, okay. She goes, you didn't look at my ass one time. Not one time. She goes, you're so involved in answering comments and playing on the phone. I go, are you serious? Like, is that really are you serious? And she's like, yeah, it makes me mad. Like, you're supposed to be paying attention to me. And I, bro, I started laughing. I must laugh for 10 minutes. You know, she's,
That
you
is
know,
pretty funny.
the girly things are just hilarious. I'm like, that can't really be an argument. Like, this isn't happening. Like, and then it makes her even more mad because I just laugh about it. You know, I don't even try and come up with an excuse or try and make it okay or say, baby,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just laugh and laugh. And the mission makes her even more mad. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah. Yeah. But like I said, yeah, we work out every morning and
Yeah,
you know,
that's great.
things are going good.
That's great. Fantastic. Congratulations. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, yeah.
All right. Let's go over this guy's cycle, should we?
Yeah.
He's been known to cure insecurity just with his laugh. His organ donation card lists his charisma. His smile is so contagious. Vaccines have been created for it. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crime, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
So how like I keep, because of the dollar amount, I keep saying it was a massive amount of steroids because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
You know, to me, they're extremely inexpensive.
Yeah, just the testosterone is pretty cheap, and the
benefit.
what cost him a lot of money is his omnitrope. So we'll just go over it one by one, I guess, where we can start. So the IGF-1. So this is going to be ironic, right? Which is going to be ironic is, you know, if you watch the Derek More Plates More Dates, like, so the Derek More Plates More Dates episode on this was really good. It was really well done.
Yeah.
And he did a great job of taking you from the beginning all the way through everything until he received these emails, right? And that's kind of the funny part. What happened is is the Liver King, before he became big, sent Derek all of this and was asking for coaching, right? And he sent this to another coach. I believe it was.
Yeah, I saw his video also. I don't.
Yeah,
I know you're talking
Vigorous
about.
Steve, I believe it was, right?
Yeah, he didn't even know he had been approached by him.
Yeah, right.
Until
Yeah,
later.
he found this recently. Yeah, and it came last year. He just missed the emails, right? Have you ever missed an email from somebody who?
All the time. I get so many. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Including my email. Do you remember that?
No. Oh, that's right. That's
You
right.
missed
I
you missed
probably
my
did. You know what's so upsetting is that a lot of times I'll read an email and then I'll mark it like unread because I'm like, oh, I want to go back and address that.
yeah.
And then I get busy and then I
Yeah.
forget about it. And then maybe 2-3 weeks later, I realize, look, if I haven't responded to anybody in 2 or 3 weeks, these must not have been important. And then I just start erasing them.
Yeah. To catch everybody up on what we're talking about, when I went on
Concrete.
like back when I first got out of prison, I emailed Matt to come on and just discuss my story. And I never got a response. Well, then I went on Concrete and Daniel called Matt and said, you got to have this guy on the show. So Matt was like, oh yeah, that would be great. And then I said, when I got to Matt's house to do the podcast, I told him, I said, I emailed you once. And
well, I mean, I missed it.
No, I get it though. But the same thing happened to him, to Derek here too. So yeah, I mean, I get that. I get a ton of emails that it's hard to keep up on them all. Yeah. So what happened is he had this for like a year, and the Liver King becoming so big, he just decided to go through and see. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but for one reason or another, he was searching to see if he had anything from him, and sure enough, he had these. So he was sitting on this for a year. He didn't even know it, and so here we go. So IGF-1. Oh, that's what I was telling. So Derek on More Plates, More Dates said that he had his blood work, right? But he didn't show it on that video. And he said he was going to show it on another video and then do a dissection of the blood work, which I wanted to see, but he hasn't put that up. I don't know if he's going to or what, because I haven't seen his blood work. I've seen a couple of things just little things that Derek showed, but I haven't seen the whole comprehensive blood work, which would be interesting because that's what I do, right, for a living now. And it would be interesting to see, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere. But except for a couple things, I did see a couple things. So one thing I did see, so he's taking IGF, right? So IGF is produced, human growth hormone produced by the pituitary gland, signals the liver to produce IGF-1. IGF-1 is what actually creates all of the positive effects that we consider, that we see in the PED community. I guess I don't want to say PEDs, that has a negative connotation to it, but all the physical changes that occur from taking human growth hormone are because it causes the liver to produce IGF-1. IGF-1 is actually what does there's a lot of conjecture that it's anabolic, that it does cause muscle hypertrophy. And honestly, you don't really see that. I don't think that there's there's not a lot of muscle hypertrophy, if any, from IGF-1. But what it does do is it really does help a lot of cells regenerate. It keeps them from going through what's called senescence, which means that it inhibits cell death, which allows a lot of cells to survive and proliferate more, right? So there's a lot of regenerative functions that it has, as well as just causing a lot of benefits. But some of the fine tuning, right? Like IGF is also HGH and IGF, one transforming into the other is what. So there are HGH receptors on adipose tissue or fat cells, which force them to go through lipolysis. And this also forces our body to begin using our fat stores as our primary source of energy over the glucose in our blood. So now our metabolisms are increasing, our entire body's being run off of our fat stores. So you really get this lean look from IGF or HGH, right? This really fine-tuned look. So the way I like to describe it is people who take HGH converts to IGF, or you can just take IGF, right? It really fine-tunes the muscle and really makes you look, like I like to say, it makes you look like you're carved out of marble. The striations in your muscles really stick out like they do with the Liver King, and the definition, right? So it really seems to get rid of subcutaneous fat so that the muscle definition, the vascularity is really prevalent, and the striations in the muscle can really be seen. So it's a really good fine tuner. So he's taking this IGF straight, which is fine. You know, it's good. But if you look at the blood work that I did see, his IGF levels are actually pretty low, which is a little ironic because he's taking a ton of omnitrope, which is omnitrope is human growth hormone. I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it.
Yeah.
Omnitrope is human growth hormone. It's a pharmacy grade human growth hormone. And that's what's costing most of the money. But this is also converting into IGF through his liver, and his levels are low. So that's what's really strange. So what is this a function of? It's a lot of people are conjecturing that, you know, it's possible that his liver just isn't producing IGF from all the HGH he's taking, but he's taking IGF too, right? So his IGF levels should be higher, but they're not. So it's probably more of a function of the time of day that he took it, because these have really short half-lives. So the time of day that he took, and if he took hours later, he took his blood test, then his levels may show low, like they spiked up and then came back down and were low. And it's probably more of a function of that, because the data that we have, right? I don't know, I guess sort of the empirical data that we have is look at him. I mean, he looks like he's taking a lot of IGF and HGH. He's just incredibly lean, and that's what that does, right? So my guess is that this is actually a function of just the time of day that he took his blood test. It spikes when he takes it, and then a few hours later. So for instance, when I had my my illegal empire, we used to test our HGH that we were getting from China, right? And we would test it I would give it to people, and there's a certain time frame you have to test it at to get a full understanding of how much this HGH will spike your HGH levels or your IGF levels too. And so it was about 3 hours after you inject and go. It was somewhere between 1 and 3 hours, right? And so we would have people inject and go get their blood test 1 to 3 hours, and then we would use that information to give us an idea of how high this spikes your levels. That's when the half-life is going to peak, right? Depending on it's a little different for everybody. Everybody processes these compounds a little differently, right? These peptides a little differently. So you know, there's a little bit of varying in time frame, but if you check it, you can get an idea of how much this is going to spike. So that's what I'm saying. It will spike up, and then, you know, within, especially if it's 4 or 5, 6 hours after you take your injection, your levels could drop, you know, significantly.
Well, is it also possible that he wasn't on it at all? Like it's just an old blood test that maybe he wasn't.
No, because with these emails, he sent his blood and said, I'm on this, and this is my blood work.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that's where they're getting the blood work, because he sent it all to him. I haven't seen that. Like I said, Derek was going to post all of that and then do a comprehensive analysis of all of the blood work, but I haven't seen it yet. He hasn't posted it yet. I don't know if he's going to. He said he was going to. I hope he does. I'm interested in it. But I've only seen bits and pieces. And one of the things I did see is his IGF level was only like 187 or 1 something. And most people walk around with 200, or I mean, not most people. I want to say, like, you know, a number I've seen a lot on people's blood tests is around 200. So he had actually probably had like just a normal baseline IGF, right? For somebody who's taking as much as he's taking, right? He's taking all of this stuff. He's taking IGF LR3 by itself. and he's taking omnitropin, which converts to IGF, or your liver converts to IGF, right? Or
Okay.
it spurs your liver to produce IGF. So, that was a little bit, but again, we look at his physique, it looks like he's taking a lot of this. So again, I don't know this for fact. It's just something that with all the experience I've had, I would say that his low IGF numbers are a function of the time of day that he took his blood test. Okay, so let's move on. The CGI, well, and here's more IGF. I don't know. So it almost doesn't make sense that he's taking all of this stuff to increase his human growth hormone and IGF. He's taking a lot of stuff. So this CJC it's supposed to be ipamorelin, or ipamorelin. It's a HGH secretagogue blend. So what these are is they mimic human growth hormone releasing hormones. So these signal your pituitary gland to produce its own endogenous human growth hormone. So he's taking IGF, he's taking omnitrope, which is HGH, and he's taking human growth hormone secretagogues to get his own natural production of human growth hormone. He's taking a lot of stuff for human growth hormone. That's why it's also ironic that his IGF levels are so low. So this is just a blend, again, that will raise your endogenous human growth hormone supply. Ibutamoren is another one. This is also known as MK677. It's another HGH secretagogue. It mimics ghrelin. Just another HGH secretagogue. So there's 4 things he's taken to raise his raise his HGH and IGF, which is a lot. He's taking a lot of this, and like I said, it looks like he's taking a lot of this kind of stuff. The numbers I saw in his blood didn't show that. It's a little ironic. So again, the omnitropin is pharmacy grade human growth hormone. So one thing I also wanted to say about all this stuff you can get at a U.S. pharmacy, and he probably is. He's probably getting all this from a U.S. pharmacy. Like you could get all this stuff through me.
Right. Yeah, it's probably. I mean, I assume I kind of assumed it's all he was working with someone like yourself, and it's all prescribed.
Yeah,
like I didn't.
You could get all this prescribed.
Yeah, I never thought for a second that he was shipping it in or getting it through some website or something. It was pharmaceutical grade.
Yeah. Yeah. So this the tescipionate, that's what you're taking,
right? So
this is a pretty low dose, just 0.6 cc's per week. Most people take 1 per week. 1 cc per week. So, but so after this, it says cruise dose, right? So cruise means, so even by saying the term a cruise is when you're just on a maintenance level, a low dose of something just to maintain. And then you do what they call blasts in between, right? Which means you do a lot higher doses. So even using this terminology is an indication that he uses a lot more during cycle periods, right? So it's called blast and cruise. You cruise on this low maintenance level dose, and then every once in a while you blast to get your levels really high. So this is an indication that he does this. So this is his cruise, him using, because he wrote this. This is from the Liver King. He actually wrote this to Derek. So him using this language means that he blasts as well. So he takes higher doses, during cycling periods. And DECA is nandrolone decanate. That's just another anabolic. It's systemically anti-inflammatory. It promotes the production of synovial fluid for joint. It's really notoriously reduces joint and tendon pain, but it's also anabolic. So, but again, he's just taking 0.6 of each per week. That's not a lot, but again, it's a cruise dose. So, which indicates that he takes more. And I would like to see what he takes when he's on a blast or when he's on a, and then the 50 milligrams of Winstrol a day, which is, it's not a ton. I mean, Winstrol is stanozolol. It's anabolic. It promotes lean muscle mass. It does not promote water retention, which is obviously, he does a lot of things too. He doesn't hold a lot of water. He's very lean, very muscular. So, and you can see all the striations. And this is the kind of thing that Winstrol promotes, right? And so does the IGF and the human growth hormone, all the human growth hormone that he's taking. but so this would promote a really lean muscle mass with no water retention. So so that's what somebody who is trying to be this lean would have to watch out for, is testosterone can promote some water retention. So you would want to maybe limit that depending on how your body reacted to it, though. I mean, I've seen people take, a little bit of Sustanon and D-ball, and then or Sustanon is a testosterone blend. So a little bit of testosterone and D-ball and be so lean they look like they're ready to step on stage. I've seen some people take a little bit of just testosterone and look like they have a water hose shoved up their ass. They have so much water retention, right? So it's really just genetics. So I mean, he's obviously got really good genetics. So, but usually for people, what we'd want to do if we want to maintain that lean is to reduce the amount of testosterone you're taking, and taking some of these derivatives. Like nandrolone doesn't convert to estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone that it promotes it's a pro-inflammatory, so it does promote water retention. So, but nandrolone doesn't convert into estrogen, or at least not much of it. And winstrol does not convert to estrogen either. So these would be considered steroids that do not promote water retention, right? So you would want to take those to maintain a really lean look, and that's kind of what he's doing. I mean, that's kind of just a breakdown of what he's taking here.
Okay, so you're so across the board, it's basically nothing is excessive.
No,
okay.
No, this is not excessive.
I guess I thought, like I said, the dollar amount was so high. And
so what's costing all that money is the Omnitrip. To take the Omnitrip that he was taking, I mean, that alone was probably, I mean, didn't they even say like he was taking like $11,000 worth a month of the Omnitrip alone? Was it the Omnitrip alone, or?
Oh, I don't know.
The rest of this stuff wouldn't cost too much more than that. But what's costing the most amount of money is that Omnitrip. From pharmacy grade Omnitrip is really expensive.
So, I mean, so if he takes all of this for a prolonged period of time, does his body, how difficult is it for your body to re-kickstart it itself? Depends on him, his age.
Yeah, it's going to depend on a lot of factors, but his age is going against him, and the fact that depending on how long he's been on all this stuff. So the way it works is there's nothing definitive, but it's more about the more time. So these anabolic steroids, testosterone, nandrolone, and winstrol, will shut down your HPTA, right? Your hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis, which controls endogenous testosterone production and follicle stimulating hormone, which controls spermatogenesis as well. So the longer that we go with all of this shut down, with all of this shut down, the more potential we have for some permanent suppression, right? So it's, but again, it's not in stone. Like, oh yeah, if you do it for this long, you're gonna suppress this much. It's just different for everybody. And so the amount of suppression would be hard to say for him, and his age isn't going to help, because naturally you're just going to start producing less and less testosterone as you age anyway. So him, like, I think like the latest thing, hasn't he been saying lately that he's going to go natural? Like he's going to get off all this stuff. That's not going to work. It's going to be hell, because it does take a while for your body to, well, I mean, you can take the medications to jumpstart your HPTA, your hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis again. You can take things to jumpstart that and get your endogenous production going again. But again, it'll be a function of how much suppression was there, and that's impossible to tell. And with his age, there's going to be suppression anyway. So how much of it is natural suppression, and how much is it because he was on all this stuff?
Right.
Yeah, and there is going to be. I don't know how much suppression there would be with his natural HGH production. I don't know. That doesn't seem to come into a play as much as it does with the anabolic substances that he's taking. So, but he has been saying that he's going to go naturally, and that's going to be interesting to watch, because you're going to see a significant decline in his moneymaker, which is his body, right? Oh, that's what I was going to ask you to do. I forgot. I wanted you to do this podcast with your shirt off, like the Liver King, so we could be like.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I don't think I look as good with the shirt off as I do with the shirt on.
I wouldn't be able to do that either. But it would be interesting. Like it will be really interesting to see. I don't see how he's going to be able to keep it up, because there would be some significant decline in what he makes money on, which is his body, right?
Well, I mean, he was, from what he was saying, he was making, great money before, and that none of this really mattered and didn't mean anything. And okay, well, that's fine. So, what's the big deal? So it shouldn't be a problem. Like, of course, he's got a taste of, I guess, fame at this point, and it was working for him.
Yeah, right.
I
can't imagine that all of that, the attention he was getting didn't increase his business endeavors.
Oh yeah, well he made it. I mean, from what, if I'm understanding him correctly, he was saying he had made like $100 million as a result of, which is ridiculous. Like I can't imagine that that's the case. But then again, how much can you, at this point, it's like, oh, was that also part of the, like,
right.
Or was that I've made $100 million worth of sales?
Right. Yeah. And it's not it could be gross, right? And
right. You're making $100 million.
Yeah. It probably was gross too, but nobody defined that. Like, you can gross $100 million and really only put a very small portion of that in your pocket.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, it's not like Ford's make, every time they sell a vehicle, they're making $50,000 on a $50,000 sale.
Right. Yeah.
They're making $3,000 on a $50,000 sale.
Right.
So, but it'll be interesting to kind of see.
But it's also, again, by doing that, even he's still like, he's reinforcing the stigma, right? Because he's saying, oh, look, he's saying, I'll get off all that stuff, when he should take the tactic exactly what you said, is no, this is a part of what I do. This is, it's okay. I shouldn't be ashamed of this. And just like exactly what you said, is lean on it, embrace it.
Right.
And I think that would be his best method. Now he's going to do this gimmick where he goes off of this stuff and
and he's got the ability to have even additional, instead of having to fight this, like you said, fight the stigma, fight what he's done, what he said, fight that, have that whole issue of no, I'm fixing it. Well, I the only issue was that I lied about it to begin with. I don't have to fix it. What I'm going to do now is I'm partnering with this company. I'm doing this. I'm bringing on different people now to talk about it. Like, let's go ahead and examine this, and let's talk about it, and let's let's look into it and make it a part of my whole system, instead of saying, okay, I'm off it. But that's not the answer.
Yeah,
you're
exactly right.
So whatever, we'll see. We'll see. He'll either implode, or he'll maintain what he's got, or maybe do even better, and we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good content for me.
Yeah,
we got an hour out of this.
Yeah, that's all right. It is an interesting story.
And I'm going to put your story at the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have your story at the end of this, which I don't know how long your story was when you did. I don't know if it's 30 or 40 minutes or something.
No, it was pretty long.
Was it?
I tend to get going on that story, and then I forget.
It was a good story.
It was.
They were great when I made the shorts.
Yeah.
The shorts were great. Like, I love doing.
You did a great job on those shorts. Yeah. Well, on the whole thing, you did a great job on the whole thing, but the shorts were really,
I would love to be able to play them, but the problem is I used B-roll. For the B-roll that I used in those shorts were from like, oh God, what was it?
Pain and Gain. You used some from Pain and Gain.
Yeah, I used Iron Man.
Oh yeah.
I used Iron Man. I used what's his name? The Wolverine.
Yeah, that's right.
Iron Man, Wolverine, and I used what was it when they changed Captain America, when they put him in the machine?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he's comes out all.
Yeah.
Right. I used all those. Those were great. See, I wish I could do it, but as soon as I do it and it runs through the algorithm, when Colby uploads this, it's going to immediately say copyright violation.
Yeah.
which sucks.
Yeah.
But at least I'll be able to play your, I'll play your interview with you, and I'm going to play the one where it's just you telling your story. I don't think I'm going to use the one where you and I did it, because I think you did a really good job. Just sitting on the stool and just telling your story, which is a great story.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm good with where we're at right now. Are you want to?
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? No.
Yeah. No.
What's and I'll put the link to your website in the description. Colby will put it in there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that.
And you said you're not really doing any content on your channel, or?
I haven't had time. I honestly work 15 to 17 hour days, 7 days a week. The business is really taking off. And we're having a ton of clients. We're on pace to be the fastest TRT clinic to 1,000 clients in the industry's ever seen.
You got to raise your prices.
It's been going really well. Well, but part of what I do, right, is I'm passionate about helping people. I'm passionate about in order to help people, the most amount of people in the most meaningful way, we have to make it more accessible, right? So part of that is reducing the cost. Like I don't think people to experience this dramatic improvement in quality of life, and to be healthy, right? I don't think people should have to pay a lot of money for that. So part of what I do is to bring this passion, with me, is to really reduce this cost and make it more, like I said, more accessible to everybody.
I don't know about all that. I still need some me time. I still need to be able to go to dinner, and I got to be able to go to dinner and work out, hang out with my girlfriend, and so sometimes you got to raise your prices. But I hear what you're saying. Hire an employee.
Well, I do. I have 4 now, and we're hiring more.
I know you got to hire another one.
Yeah, we're hiring more.
And you don't even advertise or anything, do you?
No, we haven't done any advertising. It's just like,
it's just word of mouth. Because I've had a couple people ask me.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate it, because there has been some people who've come from this podcast and the ones I did with you, and it's been great. And some of the other podcasts I've done, and also Reddit just took off as well. Like there's a lot of people just, it's kind of like I've been doing this for a long time, right? And I ran my elite. Ironically, it's going very similarly to the way it did in the illegal empire. I'm using, a lot of the same principles as far as just great customer service and, making sure everybody gets their product, great customer service. And I just kind of come on here, and I've been doing this for decades. So, and I'm a biochemist, like we've mentioned, and I just know this. I'm very adept at getting people's hormones right and making them look and feel the way they want to look and feel, and making them healthier. And so I just come in and just start doing my thing, do what I do, right? And I know I help people. I know over the decades, like I've had a lot of people come back to me, and that's what drives the passion too. Is people thanking me. They thank me for making them a better husband to their wives, a better father to their children, and a better supporter of their families. And that drives passion too. It makes me feel good to know that I'm helping people like that. And but I guess I didn't realize just how much people appreciated it until the outpouring on Reddit. Like Reddit has been going nuts, just evangelizing, what we do, what our team does, and what and how much we're helping people. So that's what it's about.
All right. Sounds good. That's all right. We're good.
Yeah. Thanks,
good.
Matt. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking with you, even when when we're talking through text and everything. And and I really appreciate this. And it was a lot of fun talking with you today too.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad we did this. And I don't feel like we bashed the guy, Like,
no, yeah, I don't. Because I wanted to bring a new perspective to it. That some of the things that I think other people aren't talking about, because everybody's already talked a lot about you know, some of the obvious things, right? And I think you and I just kind of brought a little bit different perspective to it. And it doesn't necessarily include bashing him. It just, you know, here's what he probably should have done better, and you know, here's what he could do to do better in the future.
Yeah. Well, and what he should probably do and isn't. So we'll see. We'll see if he implodes or not, or what happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to keep following this story for sure.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm gonna put if you keep watching the video, because obviously it's not over. Ryan's story is going. I'm gonna play Ryan's story now. I'm not sure. He said it was longer. I think maybe it's an hour or so. It might be over an hour. I'm not sure. But I'm going to have Colby put it at the end of this so you can watch his story. And it's a really interesting story. It's a cool story. It's about how he got into steroids and how he ended up running this super successful, website where he was selling and the money that was coming in, and how eventually he ends up getting busted and goes to prison, and how he kind of restarted his, used that experience and got out and restarted his entire life and is doing great, as you can see. And so definitely check out his story, and it's going to continue on the rest of the video. Do me a favor, if you like the video, share it, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment. I have a Patreon. You'll probably see some silly Patreon commercials that I did throughout this whole thing. Check out my Patreon and look in the description for my story. There's books, and it's also on Audible. And so I appreciate you guys watching. And so check out Ryan's story.
My name is Ryan Root. I am the largest convicted anabolic steroid dealer in U.S. history. When I was younger, I was immature, underdeveloped. I didn't, grow like everyone else around me. Even in my teens and in my early 20s, I couldn't grow any facial hair. When I was 13, I began getting picked on because I was so skinny. It made me start hitting the gym, and I never looked back. Even though I was hitting the gym, I still didn't develop like the people around me. It seemed like I had to work twice as hard in order to get half the results of everyone around me. And when my peers would, put in half the effort that I was, they would get bigger, look better, get better results than I did. This led to confidence problems. I wanted to please everybody around me, so I let people walk on me. I didn't get a lot of respect. I didn't stand out. I wasn't ever noticed and looked over a lot. So when I was 23, I did my first anabolic steroid cycle. I did Stestosterone, which is a testosterone blend. Just did 1 milliliter a week, which is a very moderate amount. And I did 10 milligrams of D-ball a day. I know that doesn't mean anything to everyone, but it is a very, very mild cycle. It's not a lot. So from this, I hyper responded. I absolutely blew up. My entire body morphed. I put on 30 pounds in just 5 weeks. And in the same span of time, 5 weeks, I put 100 pounds on my bench. A lot of people won't, I've had a lot of people say that this is impossible, but it did happen. And it is a testament, I believe, to how low my testosterone was, throughout my whole life. And then when I finally got that testosterone, my body responded, more than it does for most people. But this also, this response is what drove my passion. Because it so dramatically improved my quality of life. Like now everybody started to respect me. I was confident. For instance, everybody wanted to be my friend. Suddenly, everybody wanted to befriend me. When I would walk into a bar, all eyes would turn to look at me, and people started just parting. The crowds would just start part in front of me whenever I walked through. I would accidentally bump into somebody, and they would turn to look a little angry and then see my impressive stature and then apologize to me. When I was in college, during the summers, I worked as a plumber for my brother-in-law. I hated the job. I was terrible at it. I didn't care anything about it. But just from standing before him looking stout, he suddenly just gave me a raise. It just changed my entire quality of life. Everything was better, from feeling better to, now I stand out. I'm much more muscular. I developed perfectly, like all muscle striations. The muscles just grew in the right area. It dramatically improved my quality of life. So I lived two different worlds, one before steroids and one after, and I vastly prefer the world after. So when I was, at this time, I was in college for biochemistry, and this made me tailor my degree to the study of hormones. I started picking classes that were tailored towards hormones, and then because of the passion of how much it improved my life, I also studied on my own voraciously. Every day, I would research what these compounds did, what these chemicals were, and how they affect the body, and I just read and read and read and just took in a myriad of information. So, so naturally, because of the way I looked, people would come to me to ask me how I did this and ask me if I could help them do the same thing. So at first, I just started, getting stuff just at cost for people to help them, and I started dramatically improving people's lives, quality of lives, the same way that I improved my own, and people started really respecting me and admiring me for that. Pretty soon, like, people started to understand that if you want to look your best, look and feel your best, you come to me and I'll help you do that. It drove, like, for once in my life, I was finally creating value. I actually was able to help people in a really meaningful way. So it drove more passion. I became more passionate about it, more studying, more understanding. Pretty soon, I started to think about, well, it was time to probably monetize this. I was doing it for so many people that I might as well, just charge people for it. And that just came by just marking up the products that I was getting. I also learned, I'm a social chameleon, so I was able to befriend anybody who had what I wanted, and really find out their sources and figure out supply chains and orchestrate deals and be able to bring it to more people. So it's at some point I was able to, in doing this, I was able to find a source from China that had unheard of low prices. This source was, one of a kind. I almost had to have had almost the best prices in the entire country at this time. So I ended up developing this source and being able to help more people. And pretty soon, I became one of the man to go to in my entire city. So everybody knew that to come to me if you wanted to look and feel your best. I was the man to come see if you wanted to do this. So I still lived in a small city, and I wasn't making a lot of money. Even though I was the man to come see, I still didn't have a ton of clients because it was a small city, and I wasn't making a lot of money. So at this point, at some point, I was actually arrested for a small time and same thing, possession and distribution of anabolic steroids. I was set up by a CI, and I had to go do a short state prison bid. I just did like 6 months in a state prison, and I got out, and I had 2 years of parole afterwards. When I got out, so right before I was going into prison,
I took the source to one of my best clients at the time. He was a friend of mine, but he was also one of my best clients. And I didn't know what to do, but I was trying to set up something for the future. And I gave him the source and I said, here you go. Use this however you want. But whatever you develop, whatever comes of this, when I get out in the future, I may come back to you, and I'd like to be a part of it. So I did my bid. I get out of prison, and I'm on parole. And at first, for a long time, I tried to stay away from going back to the same thing I was doing. But I was, I had a felony now. I couldn't get a job. I applied to a whole bunch of different, positions. I couldn't get anything. I was getting depressed. I went back and started doing steroids again. It made me feel a lot better, look a lot better. And this time I didn't have any job, so I had a lot of time to work out. So I started working out really hard, and I spent double sessions in the gym. And once again, I started getting really big and looking really good. And it was a billboard for what I was doing. So people were coming to me, asking me again to help them out. And I tried to deny it for a little while, but it was dirt poor. I couldn't support myself. I moved in with my grandmother. Living in my grandmother's house, there was times when, I remember times when I only had like $5 to eat for the day. So I used to go to McDonald's, and that's back when they had dollar double cheeseburgers. And I used to buy like 4 of those, and that was my food for the day. People would ask me, "Hey, let's go out to eat. Let's go to Applebee's or something," and I wouldn't. I said, "No, I can't do that. I can't afford that." Things were just, I couldn't support myself. So eventually, I started to get back into selling steroids again. I had the same source. I mean, I still had to connect. So, it was still a really valid source, and so I started picking up locally, and that helped a little. But again, I wasn't making a lot of money. And then, at some point, so one of my clients told me about this online forum. This online forum was a source forum, and I went, where all these sources could, lay out their products and sell over the internet to anyone in the United States. So I went and researched, and I found out that I saw all these sources. I saw all these people selling steroids, and I found out that this was the largest source forum in the United States, in the world. And it got something like a million unique hits. So, there was a massive amount of traffic on here. And I started researching and started looking at all these other sources on there, and I could compete with all of them. And I couldn't believe this. Like, I kind of thought that there's no way I would be able to compete, with people all over the country. But, as I said, I had a great Chinese source, and I could compete. So I started really putting together a plan to sell online. I bought like a bigger stock than normal. I had my laptop. I had a duffel bag full of steroids and a laptop, and I just went on there and I made a list of products that I had. I was gonna, just shoot my shot, and I posted online this list. So now let me go, and at the same time, the friend that I had given the source to before I left suddenly called me, right when I was about ready to start this online business. All of a sudden I got a phone call from him. He said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was kind of a little surprised to hear from him. It's been like 2 years. And I said, "Not much. How you doing?" He said, "Hey, I'm almost at your house. Can I stop by?" It was a little weird, but sure, yeah, it would be good to see you. So he stopped by. So now this is a guy who I don't even know if he finished high school, and he was, he wasn't ever able to really hold down a job. He had sold everything. He was a dealer and sold just about everything, but he was never able to make it big or really do anything. And so when he came to visit me, he pulled up in this brand new, full decked out with aftermarket improvements, brand new Hummer. I mean, this thing must have been $80,000-$90,000. And he gets out and he comes up. He's got this big smile on his face, and he gives me a big hug. He grabs his bag out of his back seat, and then he said, and I said, oh, "What? What is going on?" So he said, "Let's go in the house." Okay, so he comes into my house, and he opens this bag, and it's full of steroids and money, like wrapped 100, stacks of hundreds. There must have been $30,000 in there, and I had never seen this much money in one place. I said, "What is going on?" And he just, smiles at me. He starts throwing these bottles of steroids at me. And I'm just like catching them, and what is happening here? And he says that the source he gave me, I turned it into a gold mine. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. He said, I made $900,000 last year. Now he sold a little bit of everything, but he was making the most money off of the steroids. So he never told me exactly how he did it, but he gave me clues as to how he set up this operation. I asked him a lot of questions, and he gave me a lot of answers without clearly defining exactly what he was doing. But what he did is he imparted a motivation in me, because I was already about to start this online, and now he kind of reinforced the idea that this can really work. And now I had sort of like a vague idea of a blueprint, because he did give me some information about how his operation ran. So now I'm more motivated than ever. And so I go and I post online. I just went on I made this list, and all I did was post it online. That's what everybody was doing prior to that. Now, to understand exactly what happened at this point, it's important to understand the zeitgeist of the anabolic world at the time, or the ethos of sources. People in relation to sources. So in the late 90s and the early 2000s, steroids were hard to get. They were very expensive, and they're hard to get, especially in the 90s. And they became easier and easier to get, but there was still this, every black market, everybody in the black market was terrified of getting a fraud, of getting fake gear. Gear is what juice heads call any of their anabolic steroids, whether it be the pills or the injectables or whatever. It's all just broadly defined as gear. So everybody was terrified of getting fake products. If your name isn't known, and if you're not selling a brand that is well known, and at the time, the concept of what's called an underground lab, or UGL, or an underground lab, where this is where people just make their own stuff and slap their own label on it. That was almost unheard of at the time. Maybe there was just a couple, and it had just started, but it was widely. It wasn't common, and people weren't that accepting of it yet. So when I posted on here, even though, to further explain, my Chinese source, had one of the top brands of, there's 5 or 6 brands that people accepted. But you have to be selling a brand that people accept, and you yourself as the source have to be well known and accepted, and you have to be branded yourself. And I was just a nobody posting. I didn't know exactly how this would go over, but I was selling British Dragon gear, which was a well-known name. And ironically, the original British Dragon had gone under a couple years ago. I think they all got busted a couple years prior, but my source just started making stuff and slapping a British Dragon name on it because they were gone now, and selling the British Dragon name, repurposing the British Dragon name and just selling it. Now, most people knew this, but the new British Dragon was quality just like the old British Dragon, so it was just kind of like one of those unique scenarios where people slapping labels on this new stuff was accepted because both, whether you had the old stuff or the new stuff, it was both quality, and nobody seemed to really care. So I had the new British Dragon. It was incredibly cheap. I had incredible prices. And so another thing that Gene, or my friend who came back, or the source, his name was Gene, had taught me was how to reduce my price with this Chinese source, how to reduce it even further than I had it. So I went on there, mentioned Gene's name, and this Chinese source must have been one of the biggest suppliers in the entire world at the time, because they were supplying the whole world. And everybody knew this British Dragon name, and they were the only ones doing it. So to get an idea of how big they must have been, the entire world knew who they were. Well, when I mentioned Gene's name, the guy knew exactly what I was talking about, had a lot of respect for Gene, and I told him that, well, I'm the one who introduced you to them. I gave him the source originally. It kind of put us on terms, and then I said, well, Gene's paying this, I want to pay this too. And the guy just kind of, although he did, he gave me a little pushback. I started saying I can be as big as Gene, but you need to give me this price reduction, and he did. So now I'm paying even lower. But I already had almost the lowest prices in the country, but now I'm paying lower, so my profit margins are going to be able to go up. But the problem was that I wasn't branded myself. Nobody knew me. So I was met, when I made that post, I was met with animosity. I was met with animus, anger, hatred. People just, they don't even want to deal with a new person because the rate of fraud had been so high. So I pretty much got laughed off of the board, and the moderators of the forum even took my post down. And then pretty quickly they posted again, or they PM me, private messaged me, and said that because of all the fraud lately, we have a new rule that you have to create a website. And then if you create a website that shows that you're at least serious enough to put that kind of effort in, and you're less likely to be fraudulent. So all I had to do was make a website. Now, it sounds easy, but at the time, I didn't know anything about a website, and it wasn't as easy as it is now. But I didn't know anything about it. So to me, it was almost like, well, that's done. I have no idea how to do that, and I'm not going to be able to. So I guess this dream is done. But I started to think about it, and I had a friend who did know about that. He was one of my clients, so I just gave him some free steroids and asked him to if he could set me up a website. He said, sure, I can do that. Okay. So, but it wasn't that easy. It's, now he just sets me up a website and I go. So the issue was that you can't just set up a website on Wix or WordPress and throw a .com after it and have a website. It's traceable, right back to a person. So the website has to be hosted outside the country in a country where it's illegal, and where the United States wouldn't have any jurisdiction. So if anybody knew what was going on and they went and searched, they wouldn't have jurisdiction to go, get the contents. It's hosted outside the country. They wouldn't be able to get the email contents, or they just wouldn't have any jurisdiction. And plus, it's legal in that country, so there's nothing anybody could really do. So I picked Isle of Man because it was just a cheap domain and steroids were legal there. So my website was called bdsupplements.im for Isle of Man. BD Supplements because I sold British Dragon, so I had British Dragon supplements, bdsupplements.im. So before the website was up, from that post that was up for 1 hour, which everybody laughed at, I almost got laughed off the site, I got 3 emails, and I call these people the ambassadors. The ambassadors were people who, so this forum had it had a point system, right? So if you are a member that helps a lot of people, that gives out good information and just posts a lot, and people respect you in the community, you get points. So these points, accrue and aggregate, and the people with the most points, have a lot of respect in the community. So like 2 of these guys had a lot of points, and I knew, I started researching them, and I see that they had a lot of respect within the community. So each of these people said that, listen, we can't just buy these things from you because there's too much fraud. So, but we like British Dragon stuff, and you're the only one here on this forum that's offering British Dragon, and we like British Dragon. So, so if you can send us something, just send us for free, and we'll post about it. So I was reticent to just give stuff away for free. And that was short-sighted to me. In retrospect, I shouldn't have been so reticent to do this. But if you have a good quality product, the important thing is to get it out there. And that was my first business lesson, is that's important. So I shouldn't have been so reticent to do it, but I did do it. And I rationalized it by saying, well, I don't want to give a product away for free. So how about if I send you this, you guys, these products, when you get them and you see that they're good, then you pay me later. And they said, okay, they all agreed. So I sent out to these 3 people. So I remember, so at this time I actually got a job at the emergency room. I actually had to volunteer at the hospital for months, like 4 to 6 months or something. And I finally, while I volunteered, I did good work. So I asked for a job, and they gave me a job. So now I had a job. I was only making like $9 an hour, and it came out to about $270 a week, and I still couldn't support myself and on that income. But and I was selling a little bit of steroids on the side, but it still wasn't quite enough. So I was working at the emergency room, and I remember checking my email in the emergency room. I was, working on my legal business in there, which in retrospect was pretty stupid because the IT department could see everything we were doing on those computers. But I did it, and nothing ever came of that. So so while I was checking my at work, and all of a sudden one day I remember seeing I had prior to that I wasn't getting any emails, obviously, because I wasn't a source on this forum yet. There was no way to really get my name out there. I only just had those 3 ambassadors, and I don't even know why I checked it. But this one day I checked it, and there was like five emails on there from people I didn't know. And I read them, and all of a sudden they started saying that, so one of the ambassadors, his handle on there was Sicko, CYCO. And Sicko they said, Sicko sent me, he said, you have good stuff. I'm interested in the British Dragon. Here's what I want. Here's my order. How do I pay? And each of them said something like this. And I was like, where is this coming from? So I didn't understand how suddenly all of a sudden people are asking me for ways to pay them. And so I went on the site, the forum, and sure enough, this Sicko had posted pictures of the stuff. This was like a couple weeks later, and he said he started doing it, and it was really good. And he got the shipment in 2 or 3 days. This is a good source. This is a good source. I got it from, and he couldn't post my name because I wasn't an official source yet. So people started PMing him, hey, where'd you get that British Dragon stuff? And he would give them my email address. And so that's how some of these guys started coming in. Ironically, at the time, I didn't even think far enough ahead to, because I didn't even, the way I got laughed off the site, I didn't even really think about how to get paid. So when they asked me, how do you pay? I'm like, I haven't really thought about it. Everybody does Western Union. So at first I just had to give them my name, my real name. And I had them send money to me. And I fixed that problem pretty quickly, but the first few people sent money directly to me, which is not very anonymous. But when I got these orders, I took this money, right? I think the 3 orders I had came to about $1,150. And I probably was going to make about $550 of that was profit for me. And I remember and I'd never made that much before in one day. So when I went to the Western Union, I picked up this money and I had this 1150 in my hand. Like I just felt this warm sensation through my chest. And I was just like, it felt good. It was dopamine just rushing through my system. And I felt great and I felt motivated and I found it drove more passion. So when I sent these guys their products, so one of the key factors that led to, that eventually led to my success over all these other sources that were on there was that black market steroid dealers are not known to be masters of business administration, right? So they were terrible businessmen. So, at this time, when I came in and started implementing some pretty simple, good business practices, I was the only one doing that. And so for instance, free shipping. Everybody else was charging for shipping at the time. And I did priority shipping, which got the packages there in 2 or 3 days, which nobody else was doing at the time. Everybody was sending their products snail mail, and wasn't supposed to touch that. Everybody was sending their products snail mail, so it would take even domestically, it would take 2 weeks for everybody to get their order. And as simple as it sounds, I was the only one doing it at the time. Fast shipping and good customer service, quality products. So at the time, the customer service was terrible. Again, black market anabolic steroid dealers don't have a concept of the customer's king, good customer service. So when you have a lot of people who are and you have something that they want, and you start to get a lot of an audience of people who become sycophantish, right, and servile, and they start they start kissing all these guys' ass, and it starts to build up a mania within these other black market steroid dealers, and they would get, and you could see the mania develop, and they start become megalomaniacs and start to think that they're almost godlike, and if anybody tries to question them or say, hey, there's something wrong, they would immediately get defensive and yell at the person with degrade them and do you know who I am? You don't talk to me like that. And I noticed them doing this. They were ostracizing their own customer base, their own client base, and the way you're talking to this guy, he's not going to client anymore. You're just destroying your own client base. And it happened a lot. And I told myself right there that I wasn't going to do that the customer is king, and that I would take ownership of any problems and make it right with the people. So when I came in with fast shipping, quality products, free shipping, and good customer service, I was the only one doing that. And so, by the way, after I started implementing these simple good business practices, the entire industry shifted to what I was doing. And these simple things, I was the first one to do it. But that's what kind of started generating some of the massive audience that I began to gain. So when I sent those other people the products, the same thing happened in 2 or 3 days. Products are good. They start posting. So I got a hold of the sicko guy. I emailed him. I said, hey, I just got 3 of your guys. Thank you so much. That's great. I said, by the way, if you can keep sending me people, then don't worry about paying for your own. And he goes, a few, he goes, a few people. I got about 30 I'm going to send you. And that kind of shows you about what one good, another business lesson is you find one good person, one good ambassador or one good salesman, and it could totally change the face of a business. So, and this is what he did. This guy just kept sending people. And, shortly after that, and for the rest of the time, he obviously got all his stuff for free. So what one good salesman can do, it can absolutely change the face of the business. So he was sending me people, and another one was actually sending me people too. And pretty soon, I had orders coming in. I was having a few a day to 5 a day, and it was the same thing. So, fast shipping, quality products, good customer service, free shipping. The main thing was the 2 or 3 day shipping that was brand new to people. And when they would post that, I got my products in 2 or 3 days, and everybody started posting online, and I started encouraging people to post online. Well, that just drove in more people. So now, mind you, I'm not even an official source on this forum yet. I don't even have a name out there. Like this is all just through word of mouth. But at this time, I have like probably 30 clients, and in just I don't know, a few weeks or maybe I don't even think it was a month. 30, 40 clients. It's starting to float in. And so eventually the the website was created, right? So now I had this, the website, my friend got done with the website. We're hosted outside the country. We have all these things. So I went back to the mods and I told them, okay, I've complied with what you needed me to do. Here's the website. Can I become a source? Well, nobody answered me for a while, right? So, and I didn't know what was happening. I went and I asked them again, hey, I have this website. I've complied with your regulations. Can I be a source? And nothing again. So I just kind of like, I don't know, days went by. I didn't know what was going on, but I was getting more and more customers. So it was kind of like, I was kind of busy and I didn't think about it. And then one day I woke up in the morning and all of a sudden I had like, double, maybe even triple the amount of emails that I normally do. And I didn't know like why suddenly would I have that. And I noticed that, yeah, these are all orders and people are most of these are orders. This is what happened. What happened? Why did I just suddenly double my my audience, my client base in one day? So I go around and I look and I get on the forum, I sign into my account and something looks different, but I can't quite tell what it is. And I notice I also have a bunch of PMs or private messages, and I start reading those, and it's more people who want to make orders. I'm like, what is going on? Where are all these people coming from? I don't understand. And something looked different. And then I finally noticed that I actually had a source tag now. So suddenly, just like that, they switched me to a source tag, and now I was up on the list. I was listed in the ranks of all the sources, and I was officially up and running as an official source on now. Again, this is the largest anabolic steroid source forum in the world. So things just started to get better. Now, ironically, when I started this whole idea, I was hoping, like begging, or not begging, but praying for an extra $200 to $300 a week. Because if I could make $200 to $300 extra dollars a week, I would be comfortable, and that would be perfect. Like that would be the sweet spot. And I even thought that was a little overzealous. Like that was, I was asking too much for that. I had no idea what to expect from this, and $200 or $300 extra dollars a week was probably too much, but that's what would be perfect, and that's what I was aiming for as a perfect scenario. Now, so. Again, I was making about $270 a week, plus a little bit in local sales, which wasn't much. I could not support myself. I couldn't even go out to eat for dinner. I wouldn't have been able to, if I didn't live in my grandmother's house, I would not have been able to pay my bills. I may have been out on the street. So all of this just went so synergistically and so well that I went from that $270 a week or whatever to within 6 months, I was pulling in this business just absolutely blew up. After I became a source and more orders went out and more people started posting, this blew up like more than I could ever have dreamed or ever imagined. So I went from making $270 a week to I was pulling in within 6 months, I was pulling in about $21,000 a week. And it just kept going up from there. Within a year, I was pulling in 40,000 a week within a year. It just kept going up within, you know, this is like $220,000 a month within a year, 2 years. We were up to closer to, getting closer to 100,000 a week. We're talking about 300,000 a month. By a year in, I was a millionaire. Probably about 2.5 years in, I moved to New York. I bought this. I was able to get a $9,000 apartment, and I moved to the greater New York City area, so it wasn't quite New York. I lived in the Jersey side, but right on the Hudson, overlooking Manhattan, in this penthouse, $9,000 a month penthouse. I got a brand new Jaguar. I leased this brand new Jaguar, $130,000 Jaguar, F-Type, freaking 550 horse for this tiny car. It was amazing. I had a new girl, gorgeous. I mean, everything was, and everything just kept getting better. So at this point, when I'm pulling in, probably like within the 6 months, I'm probably pulling in about 21,000 a week. It was a very fast change. It absolutely blew up and took me by surprise. And so there was a point when I became overwhelmed. I woke up one morning. I checked my emails. So the way my day worked is I wake up in the morning, I would check the emails. I would usually go to the gym, then go to work at the emergency room. I would work the whole time there on my legal business as well as work, and I had to, when I could, I would do some of the emails, and I had like a 3 to 11 shift. So when I got off of work, I would come home and I would have to pack all the orders from, that I collected. I have to do the rest of the emails, which took hours. I usually didn't get to bed till like probably 5 a.m. Then I had to get up at like 11 so I could go collect money, all the money from the emails from that night, go to the gym, and then go back to work. And that was my day, and it was full. So I woke up one morning and I don't know, I usually had probably like 30 to 50 emails by then. And then, I would get a few hundred throughout the day, but in the morning, there's usually maybe 40 or 50. This is like 11 o'clock. And this one morning I woke up and I had like 200 emails already. And this thing was just spiraling out of control. I was absolutely overwhelmed. I wasn't the man who's prone to panic attacks, but if I ever had a panic attack, it was right now. And I remember just putting my hand in my head and saying, I can't do this. Like, this got too big. This is too much. I'm going to get caught. I can't do this. It got out of control. This is too much. I'm going to get in trouble. I have to stop this. So my plan was I was gonna fill all the orders of people who paid, because I don't want everybody to lose their money. So I'll fill all the orders of people who already paid, but I'm going to tell everybody else that they can't order, that I'm done. They can't order, that I'm done. And I'm just going to stop. That's it. I can't do anymore. So I'm sitting there and I start to feel a little better because I have a plan. And then I start thinking, it starts hitting me like, so, to go back, another one of the problems is that a lot of things that scared me is that after I filled all these orders and collected this money, I was going to have about $100,000 cash at my house. And I never dreamed in my entire life I would hold that much money. Not to mention there's more in my basement and money just piling in every day. And it as stupid as it sounds, it became scary. Like, this was too much. I was going to get in trouble. Like, this is I have too much money. I just got terrified. So I have this plan. I'm going to quit. And then I started thinking, like, as good as the money is, and a lot of people think that, people do this because of greed. Like, you want the money and you just keep going, even though things are spiraling out of control and it's getting too crazy, it's getting too big. Like, you're right, this is getting a little too big. You're putting yourself in danger of getting caught, and it's just greed that's putting you on. And it's a very facile explanation. It's not an accurate depiction of what actually happens to drive you on. The motivation and driving force for somebody to move on who's in a situation like this is dopamine. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter that conveys motivational salience and ambition. These are all other, and passion. These are words for dopamine rush. And you get dopamine from anticipation of helping people, or of being able to obtain some reward. If you can see a reward in the future, dopamine is produced in order to narrow your focus and motivate you, and then make you ambitious to go get that reward, right? So in this case, the reward isn't just money. That's facile just to call it greed and wrap it up in one simple explanation and throw it out. It's much more complicated than that. So a large part of the reward is, so every single day I would receive emails, and I did throughout the entire process of this. I would receive emails from people that they thanking me. They said, "Thank you. You've made me a better husband to my wife, a better father to my children, a better man. I'm more confident. I can finally fuck my wife. I have the ambition and the drive to go out and do more, so I can actually make more money and take care of my family. And thank you. And you make this process so efficient, so easy, and so cheap that you allow me to do that. And thank you." And I got that every single day, multiple times a day. And that drives, knowing that this many people are counting on me drives that dopamine rush. When you help somebody, you are rewarded with dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and so when I'm rewarded with these, thinking about continuing to help people, it releases dopamine and makes me want to go get it. So I started thinking about letting all these people down, and this is bigger than me, just me right now, because I'm helping thousands of people. At this point, I probably had 1,000, if not more, clients, and I'm letting all of them down, and this is bigger than me. It's not about me anymore. It's about providing this efficient process to help these people, and I'm going to let them all down. That drove a determination in me. It narrowed my focus and I said, fuck that. I can do this. So I had to scale really quickly because I couldn't do this by myself anymore. So I put my head down and I can do this. I just started hiring people. So I had to hire out somebody to focus on one aspect of the business. So I hired a shipper, somebody who could just take the shipping off my hands. I hired, in the future, in the short-term future, I would hire a chemist. And I would hire, I had like an army of people collecting money because it took a lot of time to go collect all the money. So I had this like small army of people that collect money. And so this is kind of how my day would go now, right? As I would answer the emails. I took care of the customer side, and I started pulling all the strings to make the rest of the stuff happen. So after I developed this process, I didn't even touch any product. The products would go right to the shipper. I would take the orders, and I never saw a product. It was all, the orders came in, I collected the money, distributed the money where it needed to go, and I just pulled the strings and made everything work. But I dealt with the people because I'm the best at. Nobody could run this company like the founder, and nobody could deal with customers the way I can. So after I developed this, and the idea was to compartmentalize the system, right? So I had this grander vision of being able to compartmentalize this, so everybody does their individual jobs, but nobody knows each other, right? So in case in the future if something happens and one aspect of the business gets taken down, nobody knows each other, so they couldn't even tell each other if they want. And that was kind of the concept I started to try to build. In the beginning, everybody knew each other, but I, in the future, I actually took care of that and I started hiring out the positions in different states. I got to where at one point I had 5 shippers, 5 chemists, and all throughout the United States, all in different states, and each person had their job and they didn't know anybody else. And I started to develop that here. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I start to implement some aspects of this business that really took it to, heights that, almost made this exponentially even more lucrative. And I started to, these things made sense to me, and I started to, I just started making these moves that really worked. It made sense to me. Like when I finally went to prison, I was able to start reading voraciously, and I read only books that would help me for my future. So I read books on biographies of entrepreneurs, some of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time. I read just any books about business. I read MBA textbooks, just anything that would help. And I started to learn that I was actually implementing some pretty advanced business tactics, and I didn't really realize it at the time. I didn't have a name to put to it, or I didn't really realize what I do, and it just kind of made sense that I needed to do some of these things. So the first one aspect of this was there's a concept of Nassim Taleb wrote a book called Anti-Fragile, and what that meant was that when you set up a system that's fragile, it's all dependent on one thing, and if you're dependent on this one thing and something happens to this one thing, well, then you're crushed, and whatever you're doing, whatever system you have is over. So you have to build what he's saying is you have to build a robust system. You have to build yourself optionality. You have to have redundancies in order to give yourself outs in case, what he would call them black swan events would occur. You have redundancies and optionality to get around these black swan events, something that could be very bad or even possibly very good, or you have to put yourself in a position to have positive black swans, which is something that just yields really good results. So one of the ways to do this, and then anti-fragile means that you actually build a system that actually gets better with stress. So now you have a situation where you have a fragile situation, which if one thing goes wrong, then your whole system is gone, your whole business is gone. But if you build a robust enough system in an anti-fragile way, if something bad happens, it actually turns into something positive. And this is what I did, and I didn't really realize it was going to work out. It made sense to me what to do, but the way it turned out was sort of serendipitous. But it worked out exactly how he explained this anti-fragile. I became the opposite of fragile. When something went wrong, I got stronger. And I did this a few times, and I'll explain exactly how this happened now. So I had this Chinese source that was probably one of the better sources in the world at the time, and I had these rock bottom prices, but this guy was getting a little flaky. He would disappear for like a month at a time sometimes. And, that was pretty scary because my whole business was modeled on this guy getting me products. And if I couldn't get those products, then I had no business. So I realized that I needed optionality, or I needed a contingency in case this guy disappears, which, he had done here and there. So I started looking at other brands to buy, right? And I found people were sourcing other brand names. I had one of the bigger brand names, but the prices were too high. There was no way that. One of my things was that I had one of the lowest costs. I had quality products for the lowest price, and I would have to raise my prices. That would destroy my whole client base. The reason why people came to me, so I just couldn't do that. So, at this time, I think it's important to understand that that we understood, or I understood that we were doing this national business, but I knew that that was all anonymous, and the reason we were, one of the main reasons we would get caught is because some local cop wanted to be a cowboy, and if local people talked, the cops could hear, and a local cop could want to be a cowboy and bust us, and that was, I think, where we were most susceptible. So I made sure, I went over, reiterated to everybody that if you talk, you're going to get us caught. And everybody did a good job of being quiet. So nobody knew what we were doing. And we were bringing a significant amount of money into this small city. So it was difficult to hide the fact that all these guys had, all my employees and myself had quite a bit of money. And we were able to keep it pretty quiet. So nobody really knew what we were doing except for us. That's relevant because so the rest of the steroid dealers in the local city, like, we all knew each other. We're all friends. And if we were doing something big, one of these guys should have found out, but they didn't because we did a good job of keeping our mouth shut. So I knew that one of these steroid dealers had been making his own products for a while. And people had told me about, hey, have you ever tried Caleb's stuff? But it was like, so he made these vials, and they didn't have labels on them, but I remember people telling me it was cheap, and everybody who did it, it was really good. It was really potent, really good, worked really well. Everybody was happy with it, and the price was below what I could do. And I started doing some research. I didn't really understand making your own products, so I started doing some research, and I learned then I started to learn how cheap it was to make it yourself. It's really cheap. So, at the time you couldn't find out. Now you could actually probably just Google how to make this stuff. But at the time there was no information on it. But he had figured it out. So I was a biochemist, but I still didn't know how to do it. I didn't have a recipe. I didn't know. You couldn't find any information about it. He had figured it out. So, so my plan was that again, he made this stuff. It had no label. As I said before, the ethos of the time was that the only thing that prevented him from being able to outclass or, out monopolize the whole area was that most people didn't trust anything that wasn't a name brand, as I had stated. That wasn't a name brand, and he had this stuff with no label. Nobody wanted to trust that, but the few people who did take it said it was phenomenal and it was really cheap, and so a lot of people bought from him. But I was stable because it wasn't name brand. He wasn't able to really take off. So I started to realize that, okay, what we have to do is professionalize that operation. And I remember I always had in the back of my head, I was mad that he was able to do something that could undercut me. And, it may only be a matter of time before that, that takes my local game down at least. And I had to figure out how to deal with that, or what to do about that. And I couldn't, his product cost was so much less than mine that I couldn't undercut him. And so, it started to slowly become clear that the answer is not to fight him and try to, for instance, when another startup company comes and offers something that competes with anything with Microsoft, what does Microsoft do? Well, they just buy them out and actually, partner with the company and to make the company part of their own network, right? So I started to think about, well, this is what the big guys do. They make the competitor one of their own. And that seemed like the route to go. So I set up, we had happened to we hung out with him the weekend before. So I knew, okay, I know where he goes. I had one of my friends call him and say that, hey, we had fun last week. Let's go do this again next week. So we're going to go meet him out at a bar. And I set up this whole speech. I had this whole thing kind of prepared. And I went and grabbed a week's worth of money that I collected all of my Western Union wrappers that I had people drop me off all the money. I kept them in the Western Union wrappers because I wanted to show them how much money we made. So I put that as a prop in my car. I had like $30,000, and I have that in my car. It was the same amount of money as Gene had. I didn't even think about that. So I go to the bar. I'm nervous because if this doesn't work, I don't have another plan. This has to work, or I don't know what I'm going to do. This source is getting flaky. I can't do this. Is the only thing. This is the thing that I know will work the best if I can make this partnership. And if it doesn't work, I don't know where everything's going to go. So I have to land this, and I'm nervous. So I tell him, hey, sometime by the night, I want to talk to you. So, but it's too loud in here. We have to go out to my car. That's where I had the money. So he's like, okay, yeah, let's go right now. Oh, and I wanted some more time to go over this in my head, but I can't say, hey, never mind. No, okay. Kind of slam my drink, give myself some courage, and go out to my car. I still remember, I just started to just unleash exactly what happened. I know this is going to sound weird, but hear me out. Listen to me. Because again, he didn't know what was happening to us, or exactly the behemoth that was being created, like right in his backyard, and this was his realm too. So when I started to explain what was happening, I showed him the money. I said, I just picked this up this week. Look what's happening. This is something big. I think, if we partner, let's do this together. Let's make a brand. I want to make this brand. That's the term I use. I want to make this brand a household name. We're going to be a household name. With your help, here's the kind of money you can make. I set it up so he would make these vials. I would pay him $10 a vial. He could make like 300 a day probably. So, he could make $3,000 a day. There's no other opportunities. He's already, selling stuff, so he wasn't adverse to that. There's really no reason to say no, but I was just still nervous. I remember, I still remember his mouth just dropped open. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, and he didn't say a word. Nothing could come out of his mouth. So finally, when I ended, what do you say? Do you want to partner and make something that the world recognizes? That's exactly what I said. And he just goes, yeah, okay. So I'll buy everything. I'm going to get you set up. He had the powder source. He had the good powder sources already picked out because he was doing it. So I just gave him like $15,000, and I said, okay, get started. Buy the powders, buy everything you need, get this going, and get me some vials as soon as you can. So sure enough, it was only like a week later, he started producing these vials, and we had these little 20 milliliter vials. I created a label. I didn't do it. I had somebody else create a label for it, and we called it Matrix Labs. And if you look up Matrix Labs today, it will still, you can still see all the positive reviews for it, and it's a pretty big brand. So the economics of this were, so I was this British Dragon. I had 25 milliliter vials that I was buying for $50. I was selling them for $125. So my profit margin was 250%. With the stuff I was making, that didn't include shipping costs, right? So it was actually, after shipping, it was a little worse, but not much. So when I broke down the 20 milliliter vials, the cost of the vial, including shipping, including paying the chemist, including paying everybody, everything that had to do with making it was $20 for a 20 milliliter vial. So now, my product cost was halved, and I was charged $100 for this, and my profit margin increased to 400%. So the economics of it just, absolutely made sense. So when I started putting this, I had my list of British Dragon products, and I introduced the Matrix products. Again, the zeitgeist at the time, nobody wanted to deal with a brand they didn't recognize, or a seller that they didn't recognize. So I thought it was going to take a long time for people, people would very sporadically move from the British Dragon to the Matrix products, but the Matrix products were stronger and cheaper. They were more potent and cheaper. They were better quality, cheaper. But I didn't think that transition was going to happen. So it turned out, though, that the brand was me. I had instilled the trust. Black market buyers are some of the, as I said, they can be some of the most just trustful, hateful people filled with animus, derogatory people out there. But once you earn their trust, they can also be some of the most loyal. So whatever I had, I was the brand. So whatever I put in front of them, they would buy. And I didn't realize it at the time. But so this transition from my British Dragon to the Matrix was seamless, and everybody immediately, almost immediately, just about everybody moved over to the Matrix and started using it. And then the quality, we made it a little strong on purpose so that it was really potent, and the quality, then everybody started using it right away, and everybody started posting on all the forums how great and how Matrix is fire, and this stuff is more potent than anything I've ever done. I got that all the time, posted all over the forums, not only this forum, but every forum throughout the steroid world was writing about Matrix. I even recently had a guy, when I was explaining all of this, I recently had a guy from Australia who said, I'm from Australia and I heard of Matrix back in the day. So even people in other countries heard about this stuff, just posted all over these forums. So the fact that our Matrix was fire drove more people. So now we just keep expanding. And sure enough, I'm talking like a month later, if that Chinese source didn't just disappear, and he was gone, he just disappeared out of nowhere, just couldn't get a hold of him, and he was done. But it turns out it didn't matter, because now I had something that was more potent. Economically, I was making more money off of it. Profit margins were higher. People liked it better. And it turned out it didn't even matter. And so now in trying to create a robust system and trying to avoid, this fragility that I had by only having this one source, BD source, this brings it around, wraps it around to what was anti-fragile about this is I created something stronger. Now the thing I created to avoid the fragility, the stress came to my system, which knocked out this source of income, but everybody went to this the Matrix that made me stronger. It was more lucrative. Plus because it was more potent, it drove in more people. So we got stronger from having the adversity from the stress of losing the British Dragon source. We got even stronger. So that's anti-fragile, right? I didn't really know it made sense to me. I had to do that, but I didn't. Now I can put an advanced business concept to it, but that's what we did. And again, the money is just coming in more and more. So in order to absolutely ensure quality, again, there was a slight bit amount of fragility just because we only had one powder source. So I wanted to change that again, building a more robust system. So when you get that as big as we were, the Chinese powder sources come to you and they're trying to sell you. I was doing like $200,000 $200,000 probably every year or so. Maybe it was a little more than that. $300,000 every year with this powder source. So other powder sources just come to me. So, and I must have got like 50 to 70 Chinese powder sources trying to sell me. So I had learned that you just listen to everybody. Okay, what do you got? What do you have to offer? So I took samples from all of them. Now at this time, I had all these samples from 50 different sources. And at this time you couldn't test a vial of, like I couldn't send it away to a lab and test something for potency, like what we had for potency. Nowadays you can do that, but at this time you couldn't do that. It wasn't an option. So what we had to do to make sure everything was potent, I had all these sources, but I'm not going to just trust them. I have a brand to protect. So what I did is I crowdsourced my own client base. I used them to help me, and I told them, I want you to help me test products so I can make sure that we have the best quality products. So I would give a lot of my guys a discount for cleaning out their receptors. I would send them some of this stuff, like we'd make it and test it on ourselves first, and then, you know, everything was fine. So we'd send clients these tests because there's too many for us to do this. So we'd send the clients and tell them to clean out their receptors and do this much, this, you know, known amount every week or whatever, or every few days or whatever it was. And we knew how much that amount should raise your blood levels to be quality, right? So, and then we would pay them to go get a blood test after a certain amount of time. Your blood levels should be this if it's quality. And we were able to do this on the order of, you know, I had an army of my own clients, you know, working to help me do quality control. Nobody else was doing this in the entire world. Nobody was doing this. So, so now I had all these 50 sources and I had the qualities that I could match, and I broke it down to the top 3 of them that were most consistently the highest potency, best quality. And now we're talking about that I have not only, you know, because of the system we put in place, I have not only the best, I have, you know, absolutely the best quality of any other steroids in the entire world, not just the United States, but I have the most potent and highest quality steroids in the world because of all this quality control testing we did. So this again drove more and more, because now it's, the quality is even better. Now people are really posting, and it's all over everywhere that this matrix is fire. And people started coming to us and was like, I've read so much about this matrix, I have to try it. At this point, I'm running into a major problem. I'm making too much money. It's a stupid fucking problem to have, but it is a problem. I have like an army of people who are collecting Western Unions. At this point, I had even gotten what's called these green dot cards, or there's similar cards from different companies. Essentially what green dot cards are is you can, they're reloadable credit cards, and you can buy these reload packs, right? These reload packs have codes on them, and you can buy them. You could be in California, buy this reload pack, and you scratch off this thing, and you know, you pay for it, however much money you want to put on it, you pay for it at the counter of the CVS or whatever, and you scratch off, you get this code, and you can use this code to reload this. So somebody could just give me the code. I have a reloadable credit card. I go onto the website, put this code in it, and put in the number of the card I want it to load, and boom, it loads that credit card. It's an anonymous way to collect money. So this was another way we were collecting money. It was one of the only ways we were able to collect as much money as we were to this point. However, the business has grown to such an extent that it's still too much. I've personally got like 30 of these cards from, I used to just pay people $100 to just give me a card. All they had to do is go on the website, fill this out, and it shows up to their door. Then they just give me the card. And I also had an army of people who had like 5 or 6 of these cards themselves, and I would load their cards and pay them 6% to just come bring me the money. But you can only load so much money on these cards, and you can only take so much out of the bank. But what you could do is you could spend almost unlimited amount on credit, because theoretically that's traceable. However, you know, if you're just spending a few $100s here and there, it's not that traceable or paid attention to. So, but I had like 30 of these cards, and I had, you know, thousands of dollars on each one, up to $5,000 to $10,000 on each one, but I could only load so much on them, or they would think that they would actually shut these cards down. Or if you pulled too much money out of the cash out of the ATM, they would think there was something fraudulent going on. They would shut them down, and it cost us a lot of pain and loss of money trying to figure out, because they don't tell you exactly how much you can load on. You have to figure that out yourself. This just became a pain, but we eventually developed a system to. We knew exactly how much we could load and take out of these cards, you know, I was paying for everything. I was almost finding ways to spend money to get money off these cards so I could make room for more. I had to use these cards to pay for everything. And so in the Western Unions, but it was still too much money. I couldn't fit it all in these cards. It was a very serious problem because we were going to have to slow down business because there's too much money coming in. We couldn't collect it all, so it became a major problem. So whenever I have a problem like this, I like to I would go to the gym, sit on this problem, and I could always figure it out at the gym. What tends to happen is when you think really hard, when you're researching or studying or thinking really hard, your brain tends to get foggy or fuzzy, and it's what it is your brain's creating all these neurotransmitters to have these synapse firings, and the neurotransmitters get a little too plentiful. You kind of start having confusing signals, and that's what kind of causes the brain fog. Well, using motor function actually also uses these neurotransmitters, and you're able to clear your head through intense exercise, and exercise produces other endorphins that help, and your head gets cleared, and you can usually think better when you're working out. So I would always be able to solve my problems at the gym. I went to the gym, get like 3/4 of the way through my workout, and boom, like a moment of clarity, it just hit me how to do this. So I hurry up, finished my workout, I got home, I started implementing this plan. So what was happening is I was taking all this money from the customers, from each customer, and it was coming to me, and then I was doling it out to where it needed to go. And that was the problem. The money coming to me, I couldn't collect enough of it. And a lot of it had to go out to other places, the suppliers, my employees. Those were the two major things, my employees and suppliers. So I thought, well, it's coming to me, going out. Why don't I just take myself out as the middleman and funnel the money exactly to where it needs to go, the end result? So a lot of that was we had powder suppliers, and at this time, the Chinese supplier was still in play. So I had the Chinese British Dragon supplier and our powder suppliers. So I went and I asked them, and I almost, at a point, I had to actually demand this, but they were actually fine with it. I said, can I, because these Chinese, I always paid them in Western Union, and they always had different names. There was an endless supply of Chinese names, people ready to pick up money. And especially for my Chinese supplier, the British Dragon, most of the people around the world that he was serving only bought a few $100s worth of things. So I knew that a few $100 payments would be fine for him. So I asked, can I send my client payments directly to him? And I'd build up an account, and just whenever I needed to order, I'd order, and it would come out of the account I was building. He said right away, he said, sure, yeah, have your client send it. Here's a bunch of Western Union names. Give them out to all your clients. And the same thing happened to the powder suppliers. They didn't have a problem with this at all. So now, and then also I made all my employees get Western Union, these green dot cards or whatever the companies were like. So now I could have my clients pay directly to my employees. And so now what I did is I funneled all the money from my clients directly to where it needed to go, and all the money that I needed, that I collected myself on my cards, was all profit of my personal profit. So that was, I can't overstate how important that was, because we were almost going to have to shut down for a little bit to deal with the money issue. And that completely solved it. As simple as that may seem, it wasn't obvious at first, but coming up with that just absolutely took a ton of stress off the business. So now we're allowed to just keep growing, right? Like for a while, we're like, we can't grow. I was going to have to raise the minimum price to drop down my client base, or the minimum order. So I was dropped down my client base, and that was just going to affect revenue. And people get mad about that, so it kind of affects the brand. Okay, so now, again, that this allows us to just keep expanding exponentially. We're going into, making $50,000 to $100,000 a year, not a year, a week. Millions of dollars a year at this point, and it just keeps growing. So now we'll go to the first major crisis. Okay, so so I got to the point where I wanted to, be able. I had all this money coming in. I wasn't able to have any time to spend it. I was working 12-hour days. I think by this point I probably quit the emergency room. Part of me was trying to hold on to that to remain some sort of legitimacy, but I couldn't work and do all the work I had to do for this business, and I just quit the emergency room. Well, I actually didn't quit. I just kept giving all my shifts away because people wanted extra shifts, and I just kept giving them all away until they stopped putting me on the schedule. So, I ended up teaching one of my shippers. So to tell this story, it's important to know the shipper and the psyche behind all that. So I had the first original shipper I had became an Adderall addict, and he couldn't even think. He couldn't think straight. So his job was I would take in all the orders. People would come in, order, hey, I want this. I would send them some payment information, ask them how they wanted to pay, send them the payment information. They would come back to me with the payment. I would collect the payment and put the shipping order on an email, and I would line all the orders up. There'd usually be, I don't know, in the beginning it was like 10 a day, then 20, 30, 40, 50 a day. And I would line them all up on this email, and then send, at about 11, 12 o'clock at night, I would send the email, and then the shipper had till the next day, post office close. He had to get the orders there, the packed orders there before close. That way people would get their products in 2 or 3 days. So this guy was so strung out on Adderall, he couldn't even think straight. He freaking Adderalled himself retarded. And so his job was, here's all the list of, here's the shipping address and what he needs to put in the box, and all the stuff that he needs to put in the box is here. And he just has to pick the correct stuff out and put them in this box, put the address on it, and take it to the post office. And this became an impossible feat to get correct. So he started just sending the wrong orders. All the stuff wouldn't be there. That happened a lot. Sometimes he'd send the same order twice. It was freaking nuts. He was just out of control. So I had to get a new shipper. So now I can't take in resumes and go to Indeed.com and try to get the best employees. I have a minimal pool of available people that I have to work with. So I had this one guy that I knew that was actually begging me for some work. This guy was like him and I became friends. We actually became friends. I did a brief stint in it was actually a long-term 6-month stint in a rehab. And I met him there, and we figured out we were both from the same area. We both were in the drug game, and he felt like we were equals, and we became friends kind of as equals, although he felt he was more alpha male than I was. So he, the dynamic of the relationship and whatever, I was just like, and I could, he was the type of guy who liked to control stuff. So that's the dynamic we met at. That's the dynamic we were friends. So when he was asking me for work, because he's starting to realize that I have something going on here, and the dynamic changed because now I'm way up here. I'm successful. I have a ton of responsibility. Thousands of people are depending on me to do this, and I have a lot of responsibility. And now I'm an alpha male, and I dictate to everybody what needs to happen, and there's no questioning that because I built this empire, and I know how to run it, which was true. So he comes into the business, and at first he does a better job. There's no question about that. He was able to put the correct shit in the box and send it, and he got it out on time. This other guy sometimes took days to send it, and he got yelled at a lot. And he eventually got fired. So this guy, like over time, the job is very demanding. He would get kind of stressed out, but so another thing I want to make clear is that what money can do to a social structure. So a lot of people says, well, money changes people. Well, and that's true. It does. When you're making money in a situation like I was, money is an arbitrary construct, right? The numbers in your bank account or the cash is an arbitrary construct. It's just man-made. Like, what does it mean? Well, it's actually worthless, but it represents our value to society, right? So when somebody has a lot of money, people see that as your value to society, and money is a panacea for all your troubles. It's an easy fix to all problems, right? That's what a panacea is. Easy, something that can fix everything. So, and when people see that, you get a lot of respect and admiration, and it can drive mania. Mania is when your dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins are too high. People who are manic depressive or manic, they're too high 1 minute, then depressed, you're too low. So when you're manic, you think you're kind of megalomaniacal, you think you're almost godlike, and nobody should challenge you, no one should question you. So this is the state of mania. And money can do that because everybody is respecting and admiring you, especially when you're running a large business and a lot of people depend on you. They become sycophantish and servile, and all that respect builds up that dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphin response, and you can become manic, but which certainly happened to me at some point, but I was able to pretty quickly rein it in and understand to keep that in check. I say that so that's how people can change with money, right? That is one aspect. The other thing that changes with money, which is much less understood, is the people around you, around the money, will also change. And that is because, like this shipper and we were friends at this level. We were kind of equal social, or maybe he thought he was a little higher than me. When I rose up here, the dynamic that made ourselves friends, that made him like me, that created that connection between us, changed. And that changes the person who is left behind as well. It makes them angry at the new situation, and they don't really realize that they're jealous, and jealousy runs rampant. And I lost a lot of friends through jealousy. People started robbing me, my own friends. This jealousy runs rampant, and the people change too. So I want to iterate that it's not that money changes people. The people who are left behind also change drastically. So this dynamic shift, this guy, because he became a good shipper and all he did was do his job correctly instead of terribly, he started feeling that he was entitled to half of my business, which was ludicrous. But in his mind, his sense of entitlement told him that this isn't how drug empires work. The people involved, they all own it together. And I started this whole thing, this thing. He came into this thing after this was a multi-million-dollar company. There's no way. The dynamic changed. He started to get angry, and what I had done, so while all this is happening, I kind of realized there's something going on, but I don't think it will spiral that far out of control. I had taught him, so I could, go on vacation once in a while. I taught him how to answer all the emails and to take care of the business while I was gone. Now, when I would come back, there would be some fires, but the business was able to run suitably, and I would come back, put out the fires, and everything would be fine. So I was able to go on vacation every 6 weeks or so, and that was a welcome reprieve. So this one time I went to Cancun. I went to spring break because I had never been to spring break before, and I finally could afford it, and I wanted to go enjoy it. So we went and we researched, and we went to the biggest college party hotel, stayed right there, and it was crazy. All these college kids going nuts around us, and it was pretty fun. And we went, VIP tables at all the bars. It was a lot more fun because you could enjoy it with a lot of money this time. And I took one of my friends that was actually in college. He was 26. I was 32, and he was in medical school. I knew him but we had a blast. So anyways, and another friend came too, actually. So we got really drunk one night, and we during that night we decided to, why end the party now? After this 8 days we're going to spend in Cancun, let's get tickets to Miami. So after our Cancun vacation, we rerouted our tickets instead of going home to Miami. We paid for that, and we're so drunk that when we woke up the next day, nobody remembered doing that, and we just all of a sudden saw these on our phone, these notices that our planes were changed, or plane, and we're like, what happened? Who changed our flights to? Well, we had decided to do that, and we didn't remember. So it was like, I guess we're going to Miami. So we got into Miami. I flew into Miami, and they had, because we were coming from out of the country, they had the border security, and they pick random people out, and not even random, suspicious looking people out to search all their stuff, right? So I'm going, and I had just partied like crazy in Cancun every day, drinking way too much, and probably other stuff too. I don't even remember. But I come in, and I'm not in great shape, and I'm sweating, and I'm kind of shaking because I had drank so much, probably done some substances, and so they picked me right out. You're shaking and you're blanch white. Come over here. They thought I was scared because I was running drugs into the country, which was not true. I wasn't stupid, and I made sure I didn't have anything on me. I actually went through all my stuff with the intent of making sure there was nothing wrong in my luggage. So I knew I was good, so I kind of had fun with it. The guy told me, "Why are you sweating and why are you shaking?" And I said, "Well, because I drank enough to kill an elephant. Every single day I was there, and I'm sweating and shaking because of that." And he said, "Well, you look like you're about to fall over." I said, "I might, but that's okay. I'll get back up. I've done this before." And so they ended up like checking all my stuff. Of course, they didn't find anything, and they didn't want to let me go just because they were sure they had me, just because of the way I looked. And well, too bad. You got to let me go. I don't have anything. We get into Miami. And I actually have an appointment. One of my friends from Miami, I told him I was coming into town, and he said that he wanted me to meet his boss. His boss was interested in me investing in a new company he was starting. His boss was a multimillionaire. And so in this business, I checked out some, like a prospectus of this business, and it looked good. And I was ready to invest $100,000 into this business. And I had that meeting that day, and I think like what I did is I ran out of money because I spent so much of it. So I asked him to load my cards that I had on me with more money. I said, "Start loading my cards." And then, he didn't get back to me right away. So I started going into the emails and pulling out cards out of the, pulling out payments out of the emails that came into the work email. And I started loading my own cards. And this actually kind of made him mad because of what he was planning, which I didn't know. So as soon as I told him I took some more money, but load me up some more money, all of a sudden I got this email or this text that said, "I was going to try to wait till you got back for this, but here we go. I went to drop stuff off the other day, and somebody was taking pictures of me. The cops are after us. They're onto us. I'm leaving. Maybe I'll talk to you sometime. I'm getting out of the state." So now, I panic. My heart drops. The business is over. They're onto us. I have this meeting. I got to cancel with this multimillionaire and immediately fly home. I get home. I can't. They're watching us, so I'm scared to get on the emails. I start to learn that nobody had, from the beginning, he didn't even answer an email from when I left right away. So it started to become clear that this had almost been planned, and I started investigating because things didn't start to make sense. But now we're talking about, it's been a month and I haven't talked to anybody because I'm scared to sign on. I think that maybe they're watching the work email. People have gone without orders for like 2 weeks. It's really bad for business. Like now people are starting to scream, "This looks like a scam." Terrible. I thought the business is over. This is done. It's it. I'm incredibly depressed. But something's looking strange, and I'm really looking into this. And I started to get motivated to figure this out. And I start to uncover thing by little details that that this guy had been planning this the whole time. Nobody was watching. He just stole about $50,000 or $60,000 from me, took off because of his sense of entitlement. And one of the chemists left at the same time too, so I thought they were in cahoots, and they left. And it kind of turns out that, although it was strange, I don't know exactly what happened to this day. But I ended up hiring the chemist back later. But this guy took off. He stole the money, took off because of his sense of entitlement. And no cops were actually watching. And this was a robbery. So I got back to everybody. I hired the other Adderall shipper back. We got back to everybody. I apologized sincerely. I got everybody their products. Plus, I gave them some extra stuff. I got everybody. Got rolling again. Everybody wasn't super happy, but in the end, it actually worked out to my favor because of the way I got back to everybody. It became like, well, look at, and I was transparent with everybody. I told them what happened. My shipper robbed me. He left. He took everything. I didn't realize this was happening. And everybody saw it as, look at this guy. He had this kind of adversity. He still got back to everybody instead of just stopping and just, quitting while he's already way ahead. He got back to everybody and paid back people back more. And it actually worked out in my favor. Like, people actually embraced it more, and I became a little bit more well-branded and trusted, because even if something really bad happens, I'm still going to pull through. Again, it worked out in my favor. Anti-fragile. So that was the second major crisis. I had helped. So after this, Adderall shipper was working again. He was still doing his Adderall things and couldn't get anything right. And I was screaming at him every day, and he was terrible. So I had to get another shipper. So I had this personal assistant that I didn't tell what I did, but some of my stuff, like, it was inevitable. She just kind of started to slowly piece it together, what I was doing and how I had so much money. And she eventually asked to be a part of the illegal side, because she wanted to make the kind of money that she found that people were making. So I eventually gave her a chance to say, okay. She actually, I got her going. She actually did a great job. And so one day, this is the time that when I moved to New York, right, or the greater New York City. I moved to Jersey, right on the Hudson. Had the penthouse overlooking Manhattan, gorgeous, floor to ceiling windows, gorgeous. I get there, spend one night there. I wake up the first day there, and she calls and says, the post office just called me. One of the packages leaked. They're opening it up to make sure that there's nothing hazardous. Now, what I had is, remember, my compartmentalized operation, I had chemists making my stuff. I had one in Georgia who shipped it to New York, but we vacuum sealed everything and bubble wrapped the heck out of it. And there's no way that I should have broken it unless they must have spiked it on the ground or something. So we would send these boxes of 100 vials at a time, and he probably sent 3 of them. So we had like 300 vials, probably worth about $30,000. And one of them broke and leaked through, and they opened this up and they found the other packages. They found like $30,000 worth of steroids. And of course, it was going right to her house. And that was one of the mistakes I made. I learned in the future, I learned that I had to have a clean shipping house, right? So you have a receiving house which then gets taken to the shipper. So if something like that happens again, the DEA can go there and it would just be clean and there'll be nothing. But they went to the shipper's house. Now I couldn't get there because I lived near New York now, and she was in upstate and there's no way I could get there. So I sent somebody to her house to help her clean out everything. They almost got everything out, but the DEA got there just in time to catch them with a little bit of shipping materials and some raw powders. one of the chemists was making stuff there too. So it was just, but it wasn't much. So they got low-level felonies. They would have been able to get what's called a conditional discharge, and if they had 6 months of good behavior, it would have been totally off their record, no jail time, no nothing. However, the guy knew this. There was the girl and the guy knew this, and he just didn't say anything. I bought him a lawyer. Everything was fine. But she, from being my personal assistant, knew a little too much information, and they scared her through the interrogation. And they just terrified her with all this probably false information that she would never have spent a day in jail. And she blew in the whole operation. So now at this point, they know my name. I had a lawyer on retainer. I called him. He went to find out what was going on, but it was still a local state thing. It wasn't so. I wasn't in New York. The guy from Georgia wasn't in New York. They had no jurisdiction to go get him. They didn't have jurisdiction to go get me. They just had the two people who were arrested. Now they didn't even spend a night in jail. They were out, and they just had these, tickets for the lowest level felony you can get. I bought his lawyer, so we were talking about, kind of talking to the lawyer about what was going on, and the lawyer gave us the information. Well, they don't have a lot of information. They have the testimony of one person, which you cannot arrest somebody on. And they don't have a lot of other information. They don't have jurisdiction to go anywhere. They couldn't get into our emails. It's out of the country. They couldn't get anything. So, although they originally were telling me that they wanted to talk to me and they thought they just didn't have anything. So it just kind of like that was it. They had the two people. They gave them the tickets, and it was going to end there. And the feds were not going to pick this case up. That's what the lawyer, the guy's lawyer said. The guy's lawyer said. So eventually, after this is another instance where we went months without serving anybody, and I didn't want to get on the emails. I was scared that they were somehow watching them, and we went months again without serving anybody, and we just disappeared, and that doesn't look good. It's bad for the brand, bad for the name, but. After a few months, the guys just said, "This is over. Let's keep going." Like all the employees came to me and said, "Let's keep going. We'll just stay out of New York. This was a New York thing. It died there. Stay out of New York. Let's go." Okay, I know a lot of people at this point said, "Oh, this is greed. He got greedy." Again, it wasn't about greed. It's about you drive so much passion for this thing that you created, for your baby, for your empire that you created. And there's passion for that. It's not even about anything except seeing this thing that you created, this freaking wonderful living entity, survive. It wasn't about greed. So we went again. And here we go, same thing, apologize to people. Hey, just explain to them. I don't think I could have been as transparent this time, because it would have been bad if I told people a portion of our business got busted, but I just said there was problems, and, we took care of them. And again, this is almost business ending. However, we were able to overcome, and, the people who didn't get their orders were sent more stuff, and, everything went back to normal again. I was very good with people. I'm very good at explaining people, and everything went back to normal and got even stronger. So as it would turn out, like, this is the event. So about this time, they're creating a special task force is being created to deal with online steroids, and this is called Operation Cyberjuice. And without us knowing, and it took months and months to happen, probably 6 months later, but this special task force had been created and did pick this case up, and we didn't know that. However, we went 2 more years before anything and before anything happened, just growing and growing and doing more. You know, at this time I was able, you know, shortly after we were doing well again, still producing the same quality stuff. Everything's going. I was able to buy a Jaguar. I leased it. I leased a brand new $130,000 Jaguar F-Type. This is when I got it. You know, the penthouse. Everything was going great. Extravagant vacations. I went all over the country. I mean, and I went to different places in the world: London, Ireland, Cancun. We already went to. I used to love Vegas and Miami. Lots of trips to see floor seats at NBA games. Some of the favorite players, favorite teams. We would go so. One time I took this bachelor party to Vegas. Just, you know, because, you know, this was one of my friends. I wanted to show everybody a night they remember, so I took them all to Vegas. This was probably cost me about a $70,000 weekend. No gambling. I bought the top. I bought about a $20,000 owner's table at Hakkasan when Tiesto's opening night. The owner's table, about $20,000. I just freaking had a blast. It was such a good time. You know, just stuff like this. You know, showing friends good times. Just if anybody needed, you know, anybody was having problems, somebody needed their rent paid. So there's problems. I would always take care of it, helping people. Like I said, money just makes it easy to help people. And I was at this point, I had started to rein in my mania, and it was more about creating value and helping people, and you know, taking people who didn't have a lot of money, taking them to nice dinners, and you know, just showing everybody a good time. And I mean, the money was just coming in so fast, like it couldn't. I also started real estate. I had 4 houses that I rented out. Things are just going really well. So I go to Vegas. I get back from Vegas one day. This was September 23rd, 2015. Get back from Vegas. I was hungover. Couldn't really move for a few days, and you know, one of these days, this was a Wednesday, 23rd. At 5 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden, I heard this pounding on the door, and I wake up and like I don't even really believe I heard what I did. And my girlfriend got up, and I'm like, "Is somebody not really knocking on the door?" She's like, "I don't know." She goes out there. The dogs go crazy, start barking, go out to the living room. I kind of slowly put my shirt on and putting some clothes on. Sure enough, pounding on the door again. Now I'm getting mad. Like, who's banging on my door at 5 o'clock in the morning? Like, I'm getting mad. So I get my clothes on. Now I'm walking out there with a purpose. Walk through this living room again, floor to ceiling windows. The Manhattan, it's still probably dark out, or the sun's just glinting over on all of the overlooking Manhattan, the buildings. It's gorgeous. And I come around the corner, and my girlfriend's coming from the door, and she said that they're covering the people. I can't see who it is. I'm like, well, why don't you answer? Now I'm mad. Now I'm about to go find out who this is. I'll go figure this out. I'm going to tell this person exactly why they shouldn't be knocking on my door, pounding on it at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I run to the door. I freaking swing it wide open. I'm about ready to scream at somebody, and it is about 15 federal officers in bulletproof vests with guns pointed at my head. And so the first guy was the postmaster, the post office, federal security, who originally found that package that leaked that 2 years ago. And he's the one who pushed to get me a part of Operation Cyber Juice, because he found this packages and he made it his personal. He was a cowboy, made it his personal vendetta to it, and he told me about it. Told me how he pushed to get this to happen. So he put his hand on the door and he just says, "Okay," and that "okay" was kind of for the people behind him, because I'm not violent, I don't have any guns, nothing like that. So he was saying, "Okay, this is okay." He's not going to resist. But it was also to me to say, "Okay, we got you." So they take us to put us in handcuffs, they put us on a stool. This lady comes up and says, Do you know why we're here? I said, no, I don't. I have no idea why we're here. And I knew why they were there. The only, something that for some reason gave me a little bit of solace was the FBI agents who were there. Some of them started searching. The FBI agents, more than one, couldn't help themselves but come up to me and, hey, this is an awesome house. This is an awesome apartment. Amazing. Nice. Thanks. It's not mine anymore. Okay. So I went to, I didn't even spend the night in jail. I went and I got put immediately on pretrial release. It took 2 years for me to actually go to prison. I got 6.5 years. I think that's about it.